Welcome into the Yahoo edition of the Deeper Dive, as we'll bounce around a 7-game slate tonight in the NBA. Myself, Matt LaMarca, is in the house, and Jordan is producing. Jordan's here for the long haul. The Deeper Dive, live before lock, extended versions coming your way starting at 5 o'clock Eastern. But for now, it's myself and Matt as we look at everything tonight in the NBA Yahoo edition. What's happening, brother? New York betting is live. It's gotta be a great time right now.
We had to have what was one of the wildest betting days of all time yesterday. You know, there were people parlaying the Jaguars win along with a Raiders Chargers tie, which almost came to fruition. And that was like just an insane payout potential. And then we had the whole Draymond Green fiasco, where it was reported that he was going to take the opening tip, but he was going to head to the bench right after. So people were hitting same game parlays on all the Draymond Green unders. And because he played,
right,
the books had to pay it out.
That's
so
right.
You were seeing guys 6-7 figure payouts on these Draymond Green same game parlay unders. So just a wild, wild day.
Welcome to the party. That's all I'll say. Every day is going to be like this. You're going to see some awful bad breaks. You're going to see some worse beats, and you're going to see some amazing victories. And the state itself is just gigantic. So there's going to be so many opportunities with it. That's insane. The same game parlay with the tie for the Raiders Chargers, if that had hit, oh my goodness, man. Well, look, the good news is that you've got Knicks and Nets to bet tonight.
Yes, sir.
All right. So we don't have a ton of time, unfortunately, here. We have to dive into this entire slate. 7 games on there to look at. And, you know, we always ask ahead of time kind of where you're leaning, what you're looking at from a big picture standpoint, Matt. But for so long, I feel like COVID kind of decimated the stars and scrubs build. Are we kind of back to that now?
Yeah, I mean, there are definitely a lot of really appealing stars on this slate that you're going to want to get to. The question is, do we have enough value to kind of load up and go in that direction? I think we can. I think it's going to be maybe a little bit tougher than it has been on other slates. You know, there aren't a bunch of like slam dunk value options, but I still think the studs are so good today that you're going to want to get as many of them in as possible. And
yeah, we also, you know, take it into account if it's guys who are hurt or game time decisions, anything that's coming up to tonight's lock. We're going to have you covered there with the deeper dive and then live before lock. So let's start at the point spot here. We've got a couple of guys, you know, as far as pay up options to definitely look at. There is the wrinkle. Now we have to wait for him as far as at the 2, but maybe how he may impact James Harden. There is the wrinkle now of game 2 for Kyrie Irving in this young season for him. So we factor that in depending on where you're getting to. The pay up options are going to be Harden, Murray, although there's not really many guys around him right now. Holiday is still out, so that's going to come back, I'm sure, in conversations with both Middleton and Giannis. And then we start to get into that 30 range where there really isn't much outside of Ball because of Lillard, Brogdon. So many guys at the point guard spot are hurt, but at least, Matt, we know that coming into this.
Yeah, so I do think that there are some appealing pay-ups at this spot, not even including Malcolm Brogdon, who could return to the lineup. But for me, it really comes down to DeJounte Murray versus LaMelo Ball. The price tag on Ball has dipped to 39. That's a really good number for him compared to what we've seen. You know, he was more like a $45 player earlier this season. His minutes have kind of been a little bit limited recently, but he did pick up 5 fouls in their last game. That limited him to 26 minutes and change. Still got nearly 43 points on Yahoo. And you would expect those minutes to be upwards of, 30, 32, something like that today. So I think he's a really nice option at 39, but I'm still going to give Murray the edge. We have him as a slightly better value in our projections today. Projected for roughly 6 more fantasy points at 5 additional bucks. He's just been playing really well with Derek White out of the lineup. He's averaging close to 50 fantasy points per game in his 2 games without Derek White. Matchup versus the Knicks, not ideal. The Knicks play slow. They're not necessarily as good defensively as they were last year, but this game has a pretty pedestrian total. But I think given the Spurs' absences, you still have to be very interested in Murray at this price tag.
Absolutely, especially because of and again, it's not like Irving's going to drop 50 tonight, but it's just there's one more mouth to feed on Brooklyn as opposed to like Murray could take 35 shots tonight and nobody would blink.
Yeah, and his usage rate has been up recently. He's been at 34.1% in 2 of his last 3 games. So he's scoring the ball. We know the peripherals are going to be there with DeJounte, and he's provided a little bit more upside as a scorer recently. So, yeah, again, he's my top point guard. James Harden, not really in the conversation for me, even in a good spot versus Portland. I just think, like you said, with Kyrie back, this price tag is too much for him.
You mentioned Ball as far as the difference between Murray and Ball. So if you're building a bunch of lineups tonight, how often do you think you're getting the Ball? And we'll get to Brogdon in a second because there is that interesting element of if he does play tonight. But more curious about the difference between Ball and Murray simply being money, or just a matter of if you have larger builds tonight, you're going to get to Ball, just not as much as DeJounte.
Yeah, I'll have both for sure. DeJounte would be the priority for me. We have him projected for 23.2% ownership. LaMelo, we have projected for 7.6% ownership. I think it's pretty easy to be overweight on both guys. So I think I would probably have something like 40% Murray, 25% LaMelo, something along those lines.
Okay. Now, you mentioned Brogdon. Before we get to another guy that I had some eyes on, and it's a similar situation, kind of like the poor man's, maybe even extreme, like poverty man's version of what's happening with Murray. But what do you do with Brogdon if he's a go tonight? Is the injury concern anything there that would be a deterrent, or if he's good, you're good?
Yeah, I would probably shy away from him in his first game back. You would imagine that he's going to be limited. We have seen him post some big games this season, but I don't think we necessarily need to go there. It's more that it would take away from some of the other players on the Pacers.
So I know this is, and again, you're dealing with pay up options clearly, but when it comes to volume and who the hell else is around him, Simons, and I know he comes off that monster night, don't get me wrong. He's at $23. Portland is most likely going to be without Powell as well. So you're down a bunch of guys tonight against the Nets. Even if they score 80 points at home, you would think that Simon stands a good shot to score half of them.
For sure. Simons is a great value here at $23. He's going to be the highest owned player at the position. That makes a ton of sense to me. I mean, he has done nothing but thrive in that role recently, at least 30 fantasy points in 4 straight games. And he's been at 39 or more in 3 of them. So he still has a lot of room for this price tag to go up for as long as these Blazers guards are sidelined. I don't think that you should think twice about putting him in your lineup.
All right. Anybody below that you want to hit before we move to the 2 spot? Maybe a cheaper option or even a punt?
Yeah, there are a couple of min price guys that I think you can possibly take a flyer on here. We have Saben Lee as the top projected punt play here at $10. Not playing a ton of minutes right now. He's like a clear bench guy. He's around 18 minutes a night. But when he is on the floor, he is looking to do some damage. He's averaged 1.17 fantasy points per minute over the past month. So I would rather go with him than a guy like Corey Joseph, who's going to play more minutes, but is not nearly as aggressive and productive on a permanent basis. So we have Joseph slightly behind Lee from a projection standpoint. I think Saben Lee is good, but Corey Joseph, Killian Hayes, you could even sprinkle in some Rondo, who's been, sort of spearheading the Cavaliers' second unit. I think all 4 of those guys are viable punt plays, but none really stands out as a must roster.
All right, so let's hit the 2 spot. And a reminder here, if you're hanging with us, please hit that thumbs up button right away. When you come in, it should be just second nature. Slam that thumbs up button. Also, we want you subscribed here to the DFS channel, all 3 channels that we have across the Awesemo platform. And we'll give you 1 free month of Awesemo Plus Platinum just for signing up to Yahoo. We have that link below. There's also that $10 link where you can just do whatever you want with those $10 on Yahoo. Play whatever contest you like. All we ask is that you hit the thumbs up button. And if you're new to Yahoo, you can sign up and get that 1 free month of Awesemo Plus Platinum. 70% of the field is getting to a combined 70%, technically a little over that, 72% to be exact, my friend, is getting to a combination of Irving or Mitchell at the 2 guard. So you can either be super popular tonight and roll with one of those 2 guys, or maybe fade the field. Even Kirk getting some love here. The Corkster getting some love here.
He's been great as a part of that starting lineup, operating as kind of the de facto point guard with no Tyrese Maxey. So I think I will be underweight on the top 2 shooting guards tonight. Kyrie and Mitchell both stand out as pretty good values for their price tag, but I don't think that either of them has game-breaking upside at their price tag, right? Kyrie, he played 32 minutes in his debut. He posted a 28% usage rate. He got to 41 fantasy points. Those are good numbers, very good numbers, but his salary has increased by $5. So he needs to do a little bit more than that, I think, to justify this price tag. I'm certainly going to have some, but I don't think you need him at the same level that our current ownership projection calls for. Same goes for Donovan Mitchell. He's a scorer. He's been scoring the ball very well recently. He's coming off 36 in his last game, finished with over 52 fantasy points. So both guys are scorers, right? Their fantasy output is going to be dependent on their ability to score the basketball. So those types of players just naturally have a wide range of outcomes.
Yeah, and then it starts to dip a little bit, right? Garland's still up in the air, right? Hasn't been ruled out yet. And then you get into the Halliburton, Cunningham, mentioned White's already out there. So you've got Kyrie as kind of that mid-level, if you will, cost option, which I definitely see the field getting to, and it makes sense. I'll say this, and it's not just the typical, stick up for my squad here, although we have to get to your squad because there might be some pretty cool avenues here for the Knicks. But if for whatever reason Seth Curry is out tonight, doesn't Furkan Korkmaz at $13 become like an ultra smash? He's already playing well without that now needed void to be filled with Curry out.
Yeah, I think even if Curry's in, as long as Maxey is still in protocols, Korkmaz, great play. I think of the top 3 guys in terms of projected ownership, he's the one I'll be the closest to. Okay. I don't know if I'll necessarily get to 28% just because I think there are some other strong values here that are being a little bit overlooked. But you can't complain with what Korkmaz has done. And now he's got the juiciest matchup of the day versus the Rockets.
Yeah, and that's a big thing too, is just looking at the matchup here. So Fournier is GTD still, right? Hasn't been ruled out officially. And the last time we saw him, he exploded. It was the 41-point night. So with the time off and now coming back, assuming he plays at $14, are you willing to get back on that well there, or are you kind of just expecting him to cool off?
No, you only play Fournier against the Celtics this season. If that was your mindset, you'd be smashing. The guy stinks in every other matchup. The more appealing scenario for the Knicks is that Fournier gets ruled out and we can go back to Emmanuel quickly again. He played nearly 37 minutes in their last game, which was a blowout loss to the Celtics. If they're thin again in the backcourt with no Kemba and no Fournier, I will have zero hesitation about loading up a bunch of quickly yet again.
All right, so that begs the question. Curry is out, and both guys of the Knicks are out. Who are you getting to first, Quickly or Korkmaz?
I think Quickly. I think if the Knicks guys are out again, Quickly becomes one of my favorite plays on the whole slate. Again, if we're talking about a guy who can play 37 minutes, he's averaged 0.8 fantasy points per minute this season, and he's $10. You kind of have to just smash play. And not to mention, there's another minimum price guy who has the potential to be a really good producer tonight, and that's Josh Primo. He played almost 39 and a half minutes in the Spurs last game, and he's averaged 0.84 fantasy points per minute this season. So That's part of the reason why I think I'm going to be underweight on these top guards, is just because I think these value guards, these value shooting guards are super strong values.
So let's move to the three here. And from a cost standpoint, unless you're just racing to get to Jason Tatum, that may still apply. We don't have Drew Holiday as well. So Chris Middleton, I don't know what the number is before Chris Middleton just doesn't become cost effective, but I imagine at $33 on this slate, it's still somebody you want to get to, especially without Holiday and also dealing with a couple of other guys down. We know Powell is out, so we start to look at maybe some cheaper options on this slate, from your guy Barrett to Diallo there in Detroit, kind of that mid-20 range. But let's start with Tatum and then also kind of have Middleton in the backdrop as that cheaper pivot.
Yeah, I think that small forward is not a position to pay up at today. And the ownership agrees
not even
with
Middleton.
That. Yeah, not even Middleton. I mean, we have him projected for about 14% ownership. That's fine. You know, if you wanted to pay up just to try and have a contrarian build, I can support that decision. But I think that there are a lot of guys down the pricing spectrum who grade out as like much better plays.
All right, so let's start there. So we've taken off Tatum. We've taken Middleton off the board here. Gordon Hayward, I imagine, is going to be too much if you're looking at what you just laid out from a strategy standpoint, right? Like, where would you begin from a number standpoint, right? I mean, Oubre is back in, right, from protocol. So you want to start at that $20 range, or you want to go even little? You want to go back to Nas. Nasir.
I think we got to go Nas for sure. I like that price tag at $16. And honestly, I also like Larry Markkinen at $16. I think he's a very interesting pivot off of Nas, who's going to be, you know, significantly higher owned. So I think that $16 price range, you can even throw Lance in at 17 if you want. Born Ready is back.
Okay.
And he has been balling. So I would say, that trio is about as high as I'm looking to go. And then going down to the $10 plays, you've got Lonnie Walker for the Spurs, kind of the same logic and reasoning as Primo. And you've got your boy. It could be time to unleash Matisse Thybulle.
Yeah, you think so? Look, the field definitely agrees with you, my friend. This is probably just a matter of desperation to get some offense out of him, where normally they wouldn't be relying so much on him. Look, he's not Ben Simmons from three by any means. So is that really it? Just a matter of cost and volume based on so many people, not with Maxey out and possibly Curry as well?
Yeah, it's just minutes. It's minutes at a minimum salary is always hard to pass up. And you're right, Thybulle is pretty unproductive. He's 0.69 fantasy points per minute this season. But if you got a guy at $10 who we think can get up to, 35, 36 minutes even in a great matchup, that's something you have to pay attention to.
So I love my guys here. And anytime we can get you on board to roster a member of the Sixers, I don't want to look a gift horse in the mouth, but why wouldn't I? And again, the 10% of rostership, I understand on Yahoo, could make a difference for you, Matt. So maybe that's the answer. But at 33% owned versus 23% owned, respectively, why wouldn't I get to Lonnie Walker at $10 versus Thybulle at 10?
It's just from an ownership pivot. I think Walker is clearly the better play. But if you wanted to, build a 76ers Rockets game stack type of thing, hope that turns into a shootout, it works. If you don't want to load up on too many Spurs, right? I've talked about Spurs at every position so far. So if you've got DeJounte in a lineup and you've got Primo in a lineup and you don't want to play Lonnie Walker next to those two guys, Thybulle's a pivot. So,
it's a tough one though, man. I say that as a fan of his in real life. All right. So anything else kind of in between there that we should hit on? You've covered a lot of good cost, really effective options here. So I don't want to push the punt by any means. We have a couple of really good, cheaper options. There wasn't really anybody up top that was worth a mention as far as getting to a lot. Is there anybody small percentage if you're building a bunch of lineups that you think you could sneak in? Bogdanovich maybe at 22, and Oubre is in there. Sorry. So thanks to the chat for correcting that. Looks like he just went in. So, Barrett, Diallo, Bogdanovich, you've kind of got that mid-20 range. Would you take a reach at all with the understanding, of course, that you're building more rosters?
Yeah, I think if I was to play that tier, it would be RJ Barrett. Just from a minute volume standpoint, if you get those injured, currently questionable players out again, 42.6 minutes in his last game and a 29.1% usage rate. He didn't shoot the ball very well. He was just 7 for 21, but he still had 33.2 fantasy points. It would be, for sure, there's a lot of upside for anybody who's going to play upwards of 42, 43 minutes.
All right, hit that thumbs up button. We'll hit the power forward, the center spot, as we do here on this Yahoo Deeper Dive. Make sure you're subscribed here as well. That's key. Adam and Lofty coming up with the actual expanded full-on deeper dive next. Make sure you're checking the injury report each and every day that we're putting up. That's free as well for you. A lot of free stuff happening, man. All right, so let's hit the power forward. It's a Giannis slate. We have to start there, and then we can build off of Giannis. Well, we'll throw KD in this as well. It's a Giannis/KD slate. Brooklyn's on the road at Portland. They may be up by 40 after 1, so you have to factor that in. And then, look, it's Giannis, so maybe it's a little bit more of a difficult matchup compared to KD. How do you approach the top two guys?
Yeah, you can keep KD. Is there some merit to possibly playing Kevin Durant at 2% projected ownership? Of course, but he's not Giannis, and Giannis is in a fantastic matchup against the Hornets, who have been basically like first in pace and last in defensive efficiency all year. He put up just under 70 fantasy points against this team in their last meeting. Yeah, you have to play Giannis tonight.
So the field is pivoting to my guy here, and I think just on the surface, because I always defer to you, that this is a cost play, because reality is Tobias Harris should be somewhere in the mid-30s. But he's not returning that, so you can't offer that price because nobody's going to play him. It feels like at $29, there still is a lot behind rostering him at that cost. But to be fair, it's more just a matter of like an expensive punt, right?
Yeah, and you've got to factor in the Seth Curry thing too, right? If Seth Curry's ruled out, Harris does get a bump in usage. He's up to 27.4%. With Curry and Maxey off the court this season. He's averaging 1.15 fantasy points per minute. So that would represent an increase over his current numbers. So I get that. He does make sense to me as a pivot. Again, elite matchup versus the Rockets, but Sabonis would be my preferred pivot. Especially if we're getting no Malcolm Brogdon again, that's really the big question mark with the Pacers. But if Brogdon is out, Sabonis is too cheap at $41, given what we have seen from him recently. I mean, he's had at least 50 now in 5 of his past 6 games. So I think I would rather go with his upside with no Brogdon than I would with like the safety of Tobias Harris.
Okay. Now, you're not going to save any money with your guy Randall here, huh? You don't like it?
I have been fading Julius Randle all year, and I've regretted it maybe like one time.
That's, you know what? No problem.
Tom Thibodeau killed him. Tom Thibodeau rode him into just a pile of dust this year.
He'll be known for being thumbs down guy.
Yeah, exactly.
All right, before we get to some mid or even punt options here, Bridges, is there anything with Bridges with the pacing of the game and just going? I know that Giannis is the play here at the 4. Yahoo, we only have the option of rostering at that one slot unless we go utility or forward. So it's not out of the question that you couldn't have both. But looking at this game from what you laid out as far as the pacing is concerned, expecting Milwaukee to take full advantage of how fast Charlotte's playing, is there anything on the flip side? Or is it just a little too much at $31 for Bridges?
The problem with Bridges is just the positional eligibility here, right? On sites where you can use him at small forward, then he's much more appealing because this power forward spot is easily the best of the day, right? Yeah. And I think, again, you can play 2. You can pair a Bridges with an Antetokounmpo and sort of stack that game up a little bit, but he's just a little bit too far down on the pecking order for me.
So the only other guy that you're spending money on at this spot that's catching some ownership would be Mobley at 17%, which is not a ton by any means. And then you've got the, Bagley, Diop type flows there.
Yeah, and again, I don't really view Mobley as viable for me. I just don't see like a ton of upside. So the way I'm approaching this position is Giannis 1, Sabonis 2, and Harris 3, and there's pretty significant tier drop-offs between each of those guys.
All right, so we end here on the 5. You guys are doing me dirty. Jordan doing me dirty, by the way. My hat does not look like Aaron Rodgers with that little ball thing at the top. And look, the chat is mixed. I was getting a lot of flack at the start of the show for wearing this hat. Somebody even said, Shander, take that thing off. But then I started seeing more positive. It's like it wears on you a little bit. It just needs to, because
I just want to know if it came with a bowl of soup.
Get out of here, will you? I don't know. Like, I don't know anybody that's homeless that has like this hat. It needs to be up more, right? Isn't like that the look of like, I just walked into the kitchen, the soup kitchen? Like, this is a bad look here. Right?
It's a worse look.
Get out of here. You guys are killing me, man. Putting up these pics next to Aaron Rodgers with I never go ball hat. All right. I promise you that. I've never bought a wool hat, a Scully, whatever you want to call it, that's got a ball on the top. I promise you. All right. And we're official here on this show, LaMarca. I don't know what you're used to with Jordan. Joel
Embiid, elite option today.
The only option outside of one pivot.
Yeah, I mean, and I'm not even just talking center. Like, he's up there with Giannis for consideration as the top stud on the slate. I still give Giannis the edge in that department, but I will blame no one if they want to go with Embiid instead.
All right, so Embiid, I mean, look, at Houston, this guy is on an absolute tear right now. I think he has people in the building periodically tell him, like, every 2 weeks, you're not going to win the MVP. You're not going to win it's not going to happen, just to get him even more fired up and like, all right, I'm going to make a statement. So
they should be focused on making the playoffs.
Look, I'm just telling you. I'm just telling you motivation here, okay? They're going to make the playoffs, but they need to trade. All right, so let's look outside of Embiid. If you wanted to save some money, knowing that you're spending up for Giannis, maybe another position, where are you saving money here? Also knowing that you're saying goodbye to an elite option, which I love that phrase by you for Embiid.
Yeah, the problem at center is that there is really no strong, like, pure punt play. The cheapest I'm really looking to go is Hassan Whiteside at $17. Whiteside has busted for us really in back-to-back games as a starter, but the minutes are there and he is still a really good player on a per minute basis. So I still think he has way more upside than he's shown us. You've also got Bobby Portis at $25. I think he's a really strong play. You've got Nurkic at $27. He's strong. So to me, center is a position where you need to spend at least a little bit of money. You can't get away with a $10 player here.
Yeah. Okay. Makes sense, brother. We nailed it. We hit it. Now, next week, you're wearing your hat with the big ball on it, right?
Yeah, I got some pom-pom beanies, no doubt.
That's what it is, pom-pom. That's right. Beanie. You're from New York. You don't call it a Scully? What's wrong with you?
No, it's always been a beanie.
It's a Scully. Jeez. Now we're going to have a regional battle between which borough refers to the right. All right. We appreciate everybody hanging with us. Lofty and Adam are coming your way right now, so don't go anywhere. Hit that thumbs up button, please. See a lot of you hanging with us. Don't worry, I won't wear the hat next time, so you don't have to worry about that. Bump the likes up just for that, just to know, a preemptive thumbs up, knowing that you don't have to deal with the hat. Thanks to Jordan producing. Thanks to you all out there. Really, we love you. We appreciate you big time. That's why we give you links. That's why we give you $10 free and a free month of Awesemo Plus Platinum to hang with just for signing up to Yahoo. All right, brother. Have a great weekend. I'll see you then.
Why are you grinding your teeth, bro? You all right?
Who?
Not you.
Oh.
You just seemed like he was distraught counting me down. What's going on, everybody? Welcome to the Awesemo.com NBA Deeper Dive presented by Yahoo Daily Fantasy Sports. We're back at it again. Another week of daily fantasy basketball. I'm Dave Loughran on the Twitters at Lafayette_D, joined as always by Adam Scherer at Ship My Money DFS, enjoying a few days of solitude in the Bay Area. What's going on, bro?
Yeah, man. How's it going? Nice view. It's always the sun doesn't seem to move. It's always the same time of day here. It's great.
I was gonna say the water looks very still.
Yeah. No wind. Permanent sunset / sunrise. It's great.
Amazingly, someone actually thought that was real today.
Yeah, I think so. But like I said, I can't blame them. I used to think that all of like the Roto Grinders guys just lived, but back in the day they had like backdrops that were like whatever city they were from or lived in, and for a long time I just thought they all had really nice like views.
We can blame them, and we should blame them, and we should blame you for thinking that was real.
Yeah,
but
I mean,
you've become pretty good at DFS over the years, so who cares? Took down another second place yesterday. I was pulling for you. I had a bunch of lineups in that as well, and I saw you towards the end. Miami scored that touchdown. Did that move you, or I figured everyone at the top had Miami defense at 2,400, right?
yeah, everybody at the top had them. I needed Gabe Davis. Overtime really hurt me, but I did jump from third
25K
to second
to 70K.
What'd you say?
You jumped from 25K to 70K at the end of that game, which was
nice.
The
last Higbee catch jumped me over the Jawan Jennings guy that had been in second.
Josh said, "Damn, Gundocker got ugly." That's not. What is that? A Weight Watchers hat? Is that the
Washington
WW
University in St.
rebrand?
Louis. Washington University in St. Louis.
What is it?
Washington University in St. Louis.
Oh, okay. All right. Why would they rebrand to WW? Like, it takes way longer to say.
It's a W and a U.
No, Weight Watchers.
Oh. I have
nothing to add. Anyway, we're happy to have you guys with us. Leave it to Josh to get us off track here. We've got 7 games to touch on today, so we're glad you're all hanging out. We got 1,200 people watching, 200 likes, not bad out of the gate. Hit that thumbs up. I wasn't calling Adam fat. It actually looks like the WW hat. I don't think Adam's heavy. I think he's stocky, right? You're husky, right? One might say you're husky.
Yeah, I'm like as wide as I am tall, but that's like whether I'm in shape or not. That's just like how I'm built.
Right. That's what I mean. You just called yourself a human chode, by the way, which is pretty incredible. I didn't say it. You did. Hit that thumbs up if you haven't done so yet. Appreciate you guys joining us. We got a lot to break down. Second game, Adam, with Kyrie Irving back in the mix. How much are you taking away from one game of him playing alongside Durant and Harden? I know they played together a decent amount last year, but just from this season, seeing how low Harden's rates were in that first game back, is that something you kind of just brush off?
Yeah, I didn't even really look at what happened in that game. I was more interested in going back and, I looked at the rotations. I wanted to make sure, and the expectation, and they did it, was that you would pretty much have 2 of the main 3 on the floor at all times. And then obviously for some stretches, you're going to have all 3. So I was more interested in going back to the start of last season and sort of seeing how the rates looked with those different groups, and then trying to figure out, what percentage they were going to play in those sets. I was a lot more interested in that than what happened in that last game.
So first question, as always, before we jump into each one of these games, and a couple significant injuries, nothing insane today. I feel like the COVID protocol, does it feel like it's settling down a little bit, man? Like I know there's like Oubre went into it today and you still got some guys on it, but it doesn't any longer feel like we have 7, 8, 9 guys on the COVID list from every single team.
Yeah, it definitely seems like for the most part, it's been settling down. Like you're getting some stragglers that are just now getting COVID, like Norman Powell. But for the most part, you're getting teams healthier. You're getting pricing adjusted. It's starting slowly to turn back into like semi-normal NBA.
Thoughts today on overall lineup construction builds. Of course, it's going to be different if you're crunching or if you're hand building, but we do have some decent value. No real like mega punts that stand out as, ultra chalk, but how are you looking at this slate just before we dive into each game individually here?
I think that there's a really strong There's a couple of really good pay up options in Giannis and Embiid. Like, absolutely love to get to them, but this is another slate too where there's very, very strong mid-range centers that make it difficult to get to Embiid. Also, that are just going to draw a lot of ownership in there. So I think there's a few different ways to go on the slate. We have some pretty good value as well. I think it's going to be a high scoring one again.
I can't tell if people are serious or not about the background. I can't tell.
Yeah, I have no idea.
It looks nice though. It looks nice. You picked a good one. Did you contemplate like that one, or maybe you'd be in outer space today? You know what I mean? Like, did you run through a few of them?
I mean, I looked at them all. I've been using the
I had a feeling
the Golden Gate one since yesterday.
What were you hung up on? Was there another one that you thought, this one might be good?
Well, I mean, there's a beach one that I would much rather be at than San Francisco.
Okay. Knocking Bay Area, huh?
Yeah, more so pro beach than anti San Francisco.
There's a beach there, right?
I mean, yeah, there's beaches.
That water's probably freezing, right? Isn't that water freezing up there?
I think so. I mean, I've only been there once. I didn't go in the water, but it's not exactly warm.
No, it's not. All right, let's get into this. Milwaukee and Charlotte. We'll kick it off here. We got 7 games. Massive total in this game, Adam. 236.5. Bucks laying 2 points on the road. No Drew Holiday. Grayson Allen remains out. George Hill remains out. Are we still waiting on Connaughton? Last I looked, he was still questionable.
Yeah, Connaughton's still questionable. I'm refreshing to get a new injury report now, but as of last I saw, still questionable.
He is.
Yeah. Yep, still questionable. Okay. Allen, Hill, Drew, and Lopez out. Yep.
And Lopez has been, I don't anticipate him coming back anytime soon.
I forget he's even on the team.
Right, exactly. With somebody like Drew out, how much of an impact does it have on guys like Giannis and Middleton? Understandably, I know that Drew has been out, I think 2 games now, but at the same time, I know Giannis per minute production does go up. Middleton actually goes up pretty significantly with Holiday off the floor. But given that their price points are up there right now, is it enough to move the needle? Of course, by the way, Giannis is a great play today in an insanely high total game against a bad defense and a fast-paced team in Charlotte. But I'm more curious about a guy like Middleton.
Yeah, I don't think Middleton moves too much for me because he still has to deal with Giannis. So you can see a bump in assist percentage, especially because George Hill is out as well. Middleton essentially running point when Giannis doesn't have the ball. But I think that Middleton, it's more so there's a little bit better chance probably that he hits his ceiling just because he doesn't have to contend with Drew Holiday. He's pretty much just sharing the ball with Giannis. But I don't think it moves the needle quite as much on him as it does Giannis. And with Giannis, it's not because of the rates, it's because of the playing time. He's averaged between 34 and 35 minutes per game in the games that he's played with Middleton and without Holiday since last season. You combine that with the fact that he's playing at Charlotte in a great matchup, and it makes Giannis look even better than he normally does.
What about the rest of Milwaukee then? If you're just looking at this team from an overall ownership standpoint, I'm pulling up our ownership right now at Awesemo. Is it free today? Let me just make sure. We got some free content. No, player projections are free and NHL ownership projections are free. But Giannis pulled the most ownership here. Aside from that, it's a near 7K Bobby Portis. No longer have DeMarcus Cousins in Milwaukee. Like you said, forget Brook Lopez at this point is even on the team. How many minutes do you give to Portis, and what do you think about him at this price point?
I think 32 is a pretty fair projection. I really like him here. We had talked about it the other day when they waived DeMarcus Cousins, but it makes sense that with Cousins gone, Portis can play more minutes. And you've gotten 32 minutes a couple of games ago in a game where he lost about 4 minutes to garbage time. He played 37 minutes last game. I'm not comfortable just throwing him 34 to 36 minutes, but it's certainly on the table. One minor concern I'd have is that with DiVincenzo back and if Connaughton comes back, maybe you get a little bit more Giannis at the 5 now and you get something like 32 minutes for Portis, 12 for Mamukelashvili, and then the rest going to Giannis with Connaughton and DiVincenzo picking up some minutes. But either way, I think 32 is a very, I guess, conservative, or at least erring on the side of being conservative projection for Portis. And at 6,800 in this matchup, it makes him look really good.
Yeah, I like him quite a bit too. I mean, look, this could just be one of those games where in the event that it stays close, and there's really no reason to believe it wouldn't, very close spread, 2 points. You could get a lot of big games from both sides of this one, but Milwaukee in general, a lot of really specifically interesting players, and you're coming off 2 big minute games from Portis on a per minute basis. What's his per minute? He's got to be like 1.25 this year, right? Like 1.
He's played 28 games with Giannis. He's at 1.17.
Okay, so around 1.2. I mean, that's a very strong number for a guy that if he pulls 30 plus, even at that price, I'm all about it. Do you have anything else you like from Milwaukee though?
No, I think the priorities for me are Giannis and Portis, then Middleton. If Wara stays in the starting lineup, he's okay, just because, it is a good matchup. But you have to keep in mind that the usage rate takes a big hit playing alongside Giannis as well.
All right, let's flip to the other side of this one. Again, for those of you guys just jumping in, the sidebar, we always put the spread and the total of these games up there as well to make it a little bit easier for you. And then on the lower, if you look down below us, below the actual spread and the total there as well, you'll see all of the injuries, any questionables, players that are out. Try and make your guys' life a little bit easier around here. Now, with Charlotte, not nearly as appealing as a team. Adam, you just had Kelly Oubre hit the COVID protocol. I don't think that's going to move the needle a ton. But up top, are there any guys, maybe from a tournament standpoint, that you think stand out today in what should be a really high-scoring game?
Yeah, I don't think anybody on Charlotte looks quite as good as Giannis and Portis do from Milwaukee, but I still think there's some good options here, starting with LaMelo and Miles Bridges. Oubre being out, like you said, it doesn't necessarily move the needle in the sense that it makes any one player look a lot better, but it does take a mid-20s rotation guy out that could lead to minutes sort of being spread around to where, maybe LaMelo plays an extra minute, maybe Bridges plays an extra minute or two. It's difficult to be too confident in the playing time with these guys, but you can count on 32 or 33 minutes from LaMelo as long as he avoids foul trouble. Only played 26 last game, but that was as a result of foul trouble. Makes him look like a pretty good option. He's going pretty low owned in tournaments as well. He was one of the guys I mentioned on both DraftKings and FanDuel in my tournament plays video earlier today. Miles Bridges should give you 34 or 35 minutes. He's around a point per minute guy. Very fair, $7,400 price on DraftKings. So I think Ball and Bridges stand out. And then you can certainly take shots at guys like Terry Rozier and Gordon Hayward. And the final piece I would mention, and I think it's risky, but does come with a high ceiling, and I would assume not much ownership. PJ Washington hasn't played a lot of minutes in any of the games since he's returned so far, but he fouled out in like 22 and a half minutes last game. I think sooner than later, you start getting some sort of split where it's like 22-26 in favor of Washington, with Plumlee getting the other 22, or maybe even 20-28. At 4,800, if he plays 24 or 25 minutes, he looks fine. And if he gets a couple of extra minutes, it could be pretty beneficial to get to him, in the first game that happens.
Top plays from this game, not named Giannis. It's got to be Portis, right?
Yeah, Portis, Ball, Bridges.
Okay. Talk to me about Utah. 11-point favorites, the Jazz, without Rudy Gobert, 224 total. I mean, look, there's really only one spot to start here. This is a guy who I think we've all loved from a fantasy standpoint forever now. I mean, you go back to the days where, do you remember when Spoelstra did not want to play Hassan Whiteside and he'd play him for like 15 minutes a game and he'd flirt with triple doubles off the bench?
Yes. Yeah, I remember.
Yeah. It's funny because before that, he was basically like cast out of the NBA after the Kings and came back and he's made a decent career for himself. But more than anything, with Hassan Whiteside, if you give him the minutes, he's going to produce. He's played 30 and 25 minutes over the last 2 games without Rudy Gobert, 5 fouls in each. But really, if you look at the box score, if you look at the game flow, there wasn't really a ton of foul trouble outside of the first quarter, but it looked similar to his first rotation. Probably lost a couple minutes there, but he's getting the most ownership, not only on this team, but on the slate. Do you agree with that? And how do you feel about a $5,200 Whiteside against the Detroit Pistons today?
Yeah, I mean, I get it. I kind of agree with it. I think he should definitely be popular. Whether or not he's the highest owned guy on the slate, I think, or should be the highest owned guy on the slate, I think is up for debate, but he's still mispriced. And I don't think people should read too much into the fact that he's been horrible in these 2 starts, only getting, 20 and 17 DraftKings points. There's no real reason to think that Whiteside drops off over a larger sample. It's not like he's a high usage guy going from the bench into the starting lineup. It's not, like a Jordan Wara type thing. He's still going to rebound at a high level. He's still going to get his lobs and get his putbacks. He's a 1.19 DraftKings point per minute guy with Mitchell on the floor this year.
Harden is out tonight.
What?
James Harden's out tonight.
Oh, good.
Sorry to cut you off. That's big though, just for everyone out there. Go ahead. We'll get to that game, but back to Whiteside. Sorry.
Yeah, and so 400 minutes this year with Mitchell on, still 1.19 DraftKings points per minute for Whiteside. So I think it's a lot more important to keep in mind what he's done overall this year, what he's done for his career, opposed to what he's done just over the last 2 games. So I still think Whiteside looks great. The one, I guess, negative in his salary rising a little bit is when he was 3,500. Just what he allowed you to get into your lineups made it so even when he got like 20 DraftKings points, you could still win a tournament with him. Now at 5,200, he's not opening up quite as much. So you do actually need the good game from him. And there is a lot of opportunity cost at the position. But I think he's still very clearly underpriced in a good spot.
Yeah. And like I saw what chat was saying and what you mentioned as well. Has he had 2 underwhelming games? Yes. But, and I understand ownership plays a role here. But if you're talking about a guy that, essentially, like if he were to play 28, if he were to get back to 28, 30 minutes at 5,200 against the Pistons, you're going to want to play him every time. You'll take what you know about Hassan Whiteside and his per minute production, not just in the past, but this year as well. You'll take that to the bank at that price point.
Yeah. To me, I'm much more interested in the fact that he played 30 minutes
Right.
2 games ago and then played like 26, even with a couple of fouls early on last game, than I am in what he actually produced.
Exactly. Like I'm saying, if I told you you're getting between 27, say, and 30 from Whiteside tonight, you'd throw those previous 2 results out the window. You wouldn't care.
Right. Exactly.
What do you think about the rest of Utah here with Mike Conley, Jordan Clarkson, Donovan Mitchell? All of these guys actually for a 7-game slate getting a decent amount of ownership.
Yeah, I like Utah as a whole. I mean, also, I pulled it up just now because I was curious, but in those last 2 games, Whiteside's averaging 17.5 rebound chances per game in 27.9 minutes.
That's huge.
Elijah Hughes had 13 in the 1 game he played. But out of the guys that are playing today, O'Neal's at 9, Bogdanovich is at 7. I mean, you're still just talking about Whiteside dominating the rebound chances here. As far as the rest of the Utah guys, it kind of looks like Utah normally does. I think that all of Mitchell, Conley, Bogdanovich, Clarkson, O'Neal are solid plays. They don't stand out as top options, but with Ingles being out and with Rudy Gay being out, there is the potential for a little bit more playing time for these guys. Donovan Mitchell, typically is giving you around 33, 34 minutes. I think it's likely that he gets up to around 36 here. Same goes for Bogdanovich. Same goes for O'Neal. Jordan Clarkson should give you 28 to 30. Conley should give you about 30. So I think Whiteside's the clear priority, but mixing in Mitchell, Conley, Bogdanovich, Clarkson, O'Neal all makes a lot of sense as well.
I just want to skip to this Brooklyn game right now.
I'm actually pretty pissed off because I spent a good amount of time trying to figure out the rates for how all their rotations were working, and then they were just like, yeah, screw it, Harden's not playing.
Well, you'll have more time. I mean, at least it isn't, you didn't do that. It wasn't useless. It'll still be helpful for when they play on the road, right?
Yeah, but I'll forget it and have to do all the work again.
Yeah, exactly. Hey, what about the Pistons today? Huge double-digit dogs at home. I would say one of, by far, the least appealing teams on this slate.
Yeah, I have almost no interest here. If you want to get to some Cade Cunningham, by all means, go for it. But I don't see a whole lot of anything. Stewart, I don't really want to use a center spot on Stewart. Trey Lyles has been playing decent minutes, but he's also appropriately priced. I really have next to nothing to say about this team.
All right, let's keep moving then. We got Indy, we got Boston. It'll give us plenty of time to get to this Brooklyn-Portland game towards the end of the show, and Cleveland, Sacramento. Darius Garland was questionable. He's playing now, though, for anybody that might have been wondering. The Indiana Pacers, 6.5-point dogs. Do you have Brogdon in right now? We have him in our projections.
Yeah, I have him in right now. I don't really have a good feel for if he's going to play or not.
Yeah, me neither. I mean, if he does play, is there anything noteworthy for the Pacers?
I think if Brogdon plays, the Pacers are pretty close to the Pistons for just ugliest team on the slate, because if Brogdon plays and he's not limited at all, then he'd be okay at 7,800, but probably not really a priority. But Sabonis is priced up. Turner is fine, but still, just behind Portis and Whiteside and Nurkic and some of these other centers. Sykes, Washington, Stevenson would all become, I think, pretty close to unplayable if Brogdon is in. So big piece of news and would make Indiana look pretty bad.
Are you willing to play Lance Stevenson if Brogdon's out? He's coming off 2 monster games. This is what was it, 2015 Lance Stevenson? I can't remember I know you know what I'm referring to, but 32, 29 minutes over his last 2. pretty decent usage rate, a decent amount of assist opportunities. His last 2 games have been remarkably impressive for a guy at his price point.
Yeah, it becomes really interesting. Ownership would play a huge role. Like if I go to Stevenson at 5,500 on DraftKings, I need him to be really low owned because there's still the concern of what happens when he's not just having a ridiculously good game. Like last game, he closed over Miles Turner, which is not something that I think is going to happen all that often. But he could always close over Sykes or Washington or Holiday or Duarte, whoever. Like if he's playing well, he can get on the floor and get those 28 minutes. But if he's not playing well, he can very easily just play 22 minutes in a game as well. And the salary is getting up there. So if he's low owned and Brogdon is out, you can certainly go there in larger field tournaments. Like there's no denying the ceiling that he has, but there's still an extremely low floor as well.
He's averaging 15 potential assists per game over his last 2. So
he's played 90 minutes with the Pacers this year, and he has a 44.4% assist percentage.
Yep. 74 touches per game. That's behind only Domantas Sabonis. So you're getting a legitimate, not just production, but the opportunities for Lance have been there. And that's really all I care about. You know what I mean? If you're looking at the price point and you're getting the minutes and you're actually, if you actually have the ball, which he has been doing, bringing the ball up the court, serving as a distributor, those are the type of things I absolutely love to see. Not to mention he's also getting shots up, which hasn't necessarily always been Lance's MO. So what would you be comfortable with? There's a better way to ask, and I think it'll help the audience a little bit better. How much Lance would you be comfortable with if no other news really happens tonight throughout the league, but Malcolm Brogdon is out?
If Stevenson's getting ownership, I'd be fine with none.
Okay.
If he's getting like 4 or 5% ownership, then being over that I think would be fine. Like assuming he's coming off the bench, I'd still be more interested in $4,600 Sykes than I would $5,500 Stevenson. But if he's low owned, I would just be interested in the ceiling.
Would Sykes become a priority if Brogdon's out, and would anyone become a priority?
I think Sykes and Washington would start to look pretty good. Like I think that the emergence of Stevenson does kind of make them riskier because instead of getting those 38 minutes from Sykes and Washington, Stevenson being there plus Duarte being back, I think it starts to become like 30 to 32 minutes for those guys. And you also have the risk of hot hand situations where, Stevenson closes over one of them or Duarte closes over one of them. So I think they would look fine, certainly better than they do if Brogdon's in, but I still don't think they would be priorities in the sense of like, I would still want more Whiteside. I would still want more Simons. I would still want more Nurkic. Like some of these guys that are getting the most ownership on the slate right now would still look better.
For sure. And by the way, over 2,000 watching, almost at 400 likes. So appreciate you guys. Only asked once, but got some good people around this way. So thank you in advance. Oh, and we're almost 71,000 subs. You got us over 70. Maybe it's time for me to stop saying that because we're getting close to 71,000. But thanks. And if you haven't subbed yet, hit that subscribe button. And if you want to join, you'll see that join down there underneath the thumbs up. You get the custom emojis, the free super chats each month, the badges that improve every month or every couple of months. And, part of a thing we got going on here. Join the team. Of course, always prioritize your questions and comments along with those in our Discord too. So we'd love to have you join the team if you want. If not, that's okay too. You can just hang out and we'll keep talking basketball. What about with Boston? If you flip this to the other side of this game, they're essentially it's kind of weird right now because if Brogdon plays, Adam, this is the 6th team we've talked about, and you essentially have 1-2 teams that are pulling a lot of ownership collectively. And then if you include Charlotte as a pretty low owned team, there's basically 4 teams that aren't getting much ownership at all in the first 6 teams we've talked about.
Yeah, and Boston, it makes sense as well. It's just a team that they've been missing guys off and on for a lot of the season, but that's not really the case right now. You have Tatum in, Brown's in, both of the bigs are in, Smart and Schroeder are in. So there's just not really much that stands out. $5,800 for Horford at low ownership is kind of appealing. He has been pretty bad over the last month or so, but also has a 44% true shooting percentage over that time. So even if you don't buy into the rates he was putting up at the beginning of the year, which I think is totally reasonable, he should at least, get closer to a fantasy point per minute going forward than his recent production. So he looks okay. But outside of the very obvious fact that Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown are really talented and capable of scoring a lot of fantasy points, I don't really see much that stands out there either.
Jordan, I think I know, but please tell me why you are laughing over there. Because of the calamity and all of the calls for producer cam in chat right now. That's what I thought. They want Jordan Klein producer cam. I told you this is a thing. The people want it. We will get it if it's the last thing I do. By the end of January, we will have producer cam. That is a promise. A promise. All right. Oh, and for those of you just joining, James Harden is out. Jordan, we can keep flashing that on the lower once we get in between games. Doesn't have to stay there the whole time, but look at this. Look at chat. I told you. Ryan says, don't be scared. That's what I think it is. I think there's some fear, some trepidation, but we'll get you. I am a man of the people, Eric, and so is Jordan. All right. Is there anything else for Boston, or should we keep this going?
Nothing else for Boston. I did want to mention, because it came up in chat, a couple people have mentioned Dante DiVincenzo. I'm assuming he comes off the bench and plays like 20 minutes or something, in which case, at 3,900, if you're playing a bunch of lineups and you have a little bit, that's fine. But it wouldn't be any sort of a priority. If he starts, then totally different. Feel pretty confident getting him.
Okay. This is Dave. Is he going to be Robin to your Howard? No, it would be Baba Booey. It would be Gary Delabate. That's who it would be. Anyway, we got 4 games to go. We're going to get to some big news shortly, but before we do, shout out to our sponsor, Yahoo Fantasy. You should just be playing there. The payouts are better than anywhere else. I shouldn't even need to say it, man. You get a free month of Awesemo Plus Platinum when you sign up. It's $90 value. All you got to do is click the link in the description, or the one that I believe Jordan is either throwing in the chat right now or going back and forth with people in chat, but he will put that in the chat so you can sign up. And yeah, everything on the site, everything at Awesemo, from ownership to top stacks to the boom bust tool. We reference all these on the shows. Everybody uses them when they play each day. The lineup builder, all of our premium tools, all the premium articles, all these tools built by Alex, Awesemo himself as well. So they're legitimately good. So yeah, check that out. And I don't say this just as another site, but you're not going to find places that are paying out 2x to minimum or to min cash. Like, and 20% of the field. You know what I mean? All of their big contests are paying out 2x for a min cash. It might not sound like a lot, but when it comes to sustaining a bankroll in tournaments that can eat you alive, yeah, it makes a difference. They got a lot of tournaments that are paying out 33+% of the field. Like, the incentive to play isn't just getting the free month, which you should do. It's knowing that the contest payouts and the payout structures are just so much better than everywhere else. And you get a $10 credit and $25 when you make your first deposit using the promo code Yahoo10. So that's just another reason to sign up over there. Yahoo Daily Fantasy Sports. Check it out and use the link if you're trying to get that free month. If you do it that way, they'll hit us up with your email, and then we'll hit you up and we'll get you set up with the month. We'll get you into our premium Discord, into the office hours where you got the pros helping you out every day, improve the game. And you can check out all of the tools as well for the entire month for free. So Yahoo Daily Fantasy, check it out. I think you will enjoy it, and you'll enjoy using all of the tools we have for Yahoo over at Awesemo with that free month. All right, let's talk about San Antonio and the Knicks. Adam, the Spurs, 6.5-point dogs here. The only news we have here is pretty much the same guys that have been out, right? White, Vassell, Johnson. Trey Jones is out now as well, and he had been getting some additional run. Does anybody in a big way stand out for San Antonio today? Like, Lonnie Walker obviously is one of the guys that's going to have a lot of popularity.
Yeah, I think there's a lot to like from the Spurs, which is weird to say because we don't say it all that often. But with these guys out, you get some value and you get one of the higher upside guys in DeJounte Murray as well. But starting with Lonnie Walker, he's pulling the most ownership here at 4,200 on DraftKings. He started yesterday, played about 28 minutes or so in regulation, but he also had sort of a weird rotation where he didn't close the first half. They had Tyler Johnson out there instead. So there's easily more minutes available for him potentially where he could get north of 30, but he's around a 0.9 fantasy point per minute guy this year. Looks like a very good value at that price. Josh Primo at 3,600, about a 0.75 fantasy point per minute guy this year. 34.5 minutes in regulation yesterday. I expect him to play, north of 30 again. Makes him look like a good value. Same can be said for $3,800 Keita Bates-Diop. All of these guys Pulling some ownership, deservedly so. Walker at 29% on DraftKings, Bates Diop at 18, Primo at 16. I think they all look like good values. And then you get DeJounte Murray, who has averaged 1.5 DraftKings points per minute without Derek White this year. He has a 27% usage rate, a 41% assist percentage. He should give you 34 or 35 minutes. The matchup isn't great. New York's a very slow team. They're not bad defensively, but 9,700 for Murray getting elevated rates without Derek White is still pretty appealing.
How many Spurs are you willing to play in the same lineup tonight in large field tournaments?
I won't go above 3.
3? Okay. Would you be comfortable with 3, or is that kind of like the firm limit? You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't love it because there's still only so much production to go around. This team only has a 103 total. The only reason I would even say 3 is because Walker, Primo, Bates Diop are so cheap. So, like, if I have DeJounte Murray, I don't mind having Primo and Walker or something and just, figuring I can get 26 fantasy points from both of those guys, and Murray can go for 50. If it were, more expensive guys, I'd be more hesitant. But because they're so cheap, I don't really mind.
But in the same breath, like, wouldn't you be a little hesitant to have Primo, Bates Diop, and Walker as your 3, even though they're cheap?
I wouldn't really love that. I think typically if I do get to 3, I'm pretty sure Murray or Pirtle, but probably Murray would be one of them.
Gotcha. Okay, yeah, that's what I was trying to get to. That makes a lot more sense. Would you say Murray's I don't want to say top option for you today, because there are a decent amount of top options. And let's not forget, right, that now that Harden is out, it changes things up a lot when now it's like before you had Durant, Harden, and then Irving at 8,800 himself. You take Harden out of the mix, and now it puts 2 guys immediately firmly in play against a horrible Portland team.
Right, yeah, it changes things because now it makes Kyrie look even better. But I do think Murray's one of the better guys in his price range. The one thing I would point out, I mentioned it this morning with Josh too, and since then LaMelo's ownership has come up a little bit, but on DraftKings, LaMelo is $400 less expensive and still pulling basically half the ownership. I think Murray projects higher, but it is a more appealing game for LaMelo, and he certainly is capable of giving you the same production that Murray can.
How about on the other side with the Knicks? You talked about a pretty slow team, just decent overall, a little underwhelming this year, not living up to expectations, but from a DFS standpoint, that kind of doesn't matter. Yet another team, though, just not getting a lot of love. Nobody really popping from the New York Knicks in our boom bust tool. I mean, Randall's up there around 21%, which isn't bad, but when you consider his price point, again, the Kyrie Irving thing at a similar price, different position, obviously, is going to start to pull ownership of guys like that even further down, I would suspect.
Yeah, and we're kind of in a holding pattern too on the Knicks because we have no idea who's playing for them. Right. Fournier's questionable, Kemba's questionable. So the one constant is Julius Randle should give you 37, 38 minutes regardless of who else is out there. His salary on DraftKings has dropped to 9,100, which does look pretty good. But like you were saying, at other positions, you have Kyrie, you have LaMelo, you have Murray for a little bit more, and Randle's only power forward eligible. So it's still kind of difficult to prioritize him, but 10% ownership is certainly reasonable. Don't mind getting there. As far as the rest of the team goes, if Alec Burks is starting, so like if Kemba is out or Kemba's coming off the bench and Burks is starting at 5,600, that's a pretty decent option. If Kemba and Fournier are out, RJ Barrett starts to look pretty good at 6,400. It would make it likely that he approaches 40 minutes here. But like if Fournier is in and if Kemba's in, and like Kemba's starting and Burks goes back to the bench or something, then if something like that happens, I think it's pretty much just Randle or move on.
Connaughton is probable now.
Yeah, Connaughton probable, DiVincenzo available. They will both have their minutes monitored, whatever.
The dreaded monitored minutes. Okay.
Yeah, so I don't know if that, I mean, it makes me think that they're both coming off the bench, but I don't know. I don't remember who it was. Somebody started the other day on a supposed minutes limit and then just played like his normal run.
We should have some Knicks news sooner than later. We have the Live Before Lock show coming up next. It's your boys, Josh Engleman, Greg Ehrenberg, taking you all the way up till 7:00 till tip off. So definitely stick around for those guys. I'm assuming we get that news. I guess as of now, Adam, and you kind of broke it down there, but just to recap a little bit, and like I said, stick around for Live Before Lock. It'll be able to kind of crystallize this a little better than we can with very little information. If Fournier is out, who benefits enough to be viable?
It still depends on the starting lineup because so if Kemba's out and Fournier's out and Quickly is back in the starting lineup at 4,900, he played 36 minutes even without being on the floor to end the game. It would make him look very good. But if they go with, let's say, Kemba, Burks, Barrett, Randall, Robinson, that I'm not really confident in getting to Quickly. I think Burks and Kemba would both be fine in that situation, but they wouldn't really stand out. So it still kind of depends on what the starting lineup is, who's starting in place of Fournier.
Anything else you want to hit on now with the information we have for New York?
No, just pay attention to the starting lineup.
All right. Yeah, stick around live before lock 6 to 7. These guys got you. Philly and Houston. All right, let's get into this one a little bit here. We'll start with Philly. The Houston Rockets play at the second fastest pace in the league. Philly plays at the third slowest pace in the league. The Rockets have a heinous 114.7 defensive rating. Essentially everything about this team is bad. And, Philly comes in as a double-digit road favorite. They are without Tyrese Maxey and Shake Milton. We're waiting on news for Seth Curry, but we have to start with Joel Embiid coming in at a hefty price point. But even in pretty limited minutes lately, Adam, a few of these games lost some minutes to blowouts, probably could have got to 34, 35. But Embiid has been dominant as a scorer. The only strange thing is his rebounding has fluctuated back and forth, but still getting good production. And he's just really excelled at times as a facilitator as well.
Yeah, and there's more assist opportunities available for him with Maxey and Milton out as well. Yep. Curry also questionable. You could essentially have a point guardless Sixers team here where you're seeing Tobias Harris and Embiid take on a much bigger playmaking role. But even if Curry is in, Embiid looks great. It's a good matchup. There's no real answer on Houston. He's 11K, which is certainly reasonable. The only issue with Embiid is that there's a decent chance that you're going to get, 40 to 50 fantasy point games from guys like Nurkic and Portis. Whiteside certainly could do it. And that would make, the 60-point game from Embiid not quite as enticing, but he should just go absolutely nuts here. He looks great. He's getting some ownership at 18%. I think that makes sense.
Certainly feels like it makes sense. I mean, at this point, it's Joel Embiid and then Tobias Harris, as you said, remember last week, greatest player on the slate. Remember that?
Yep.
You remember. Yeah, vividly. Tobias Harris got booed and it turned into a big thing in Philly. He's played pretty well since then. So I think he has the Philly fans to thank for that. Actually, he's shooting pretty well. And, well, he's still Tobias Harris and he's still 8K, but he's going up against the Houston Rockets. Again, no Maxey, no Milton. Seth Curry, not exactly a dominant ball handler, but someone that's going to get some shots up in the starting lineup. Do we need to be talking about Tobias Harris here today?
I think so. I mean, assuming Houston hangs in this game, Harris should play 35, 36 minutes at least. Like Embiid, he gets a bump in assist percentage with Maxey and Milton out. Even more so if Curry is out. I would expect the ball to be in Harris's hands a lot. In the games he's played with Embiid this year, he has about a 23% usage rate, 12% rebounding percentage. He's over a fantasy point per minute guy, and this is a good spot for him. So 8K on DraftKings seems very reasonable for Harris. 6,600 for Curry if he's in is pretty appealing as well. I would expect around 36 minutes or so with increased assist opportunities and a little bit of a bump in usage. So I like those three, and then even Korkmaz is likely to give you mid-30s in minutes in a good matchup as well.
I know Ryan Houston is trolling, but he keeps saying that we are thick, right? Which is odd. But Jordan, I've realized that you have us cropped to where we do look unseemly. We just look. What?
What about my box, Jordan?
It does look funny. I mean, my shoulders don't even exist in this crop. I'm just. He's just ahead right now with the way that he's cropped. All right. Yeah, we're just floating heads. It's not even your fault. I get it. Like, I know I used to have to produce and crop and I hated it, but it is fun. Like Ryan Houston's actually not wrong. So yeah, well, I'll sit further away from the camera next time. Adam, do you want to hit on anything else from Philly?
No, I don't think so. I mean, Embiid, Harris, Curry, Korkmaz all look good. Matisse Thybulle probably better on FanDuel just because of the scoring system. If Curry's ruled out, I do think Harris and Embiid look even better. I think you would see a bump in assist percentage for Korkmaz potentially. I don't know if Danny Green would start or if Isaiah Joe would move into the starting lineup. If Joe starts at 3K flat, he would be at least mildly interesting.
All right. What about on Houston? Not a good basketball team, but if this game stays competitive, we know that there's going to be some big minutes going to some specific players. I guess we have to start with, it never feels particularly good. And this is a guy that we talked about a whole lot last year when they were insanely shorthanded, but David Nwaba, like, is he getting 20%? He's got, right now we got a projected for 20% ownership. Where do you think, what side of that do you think you're coming in on today?
I'm extremely confused why that's the case.
Yeah, me too.
I'm not expecting him to start. I'm expecting him to come off the bench and basically be behind everybody else. So, like, if I give him 20 minutes, he looks fine at 3,300, but I don't really know why he's getting ownership. Like, he looks like somebody that if he weren't getting ownership, I could see saying, like, okay, well, I'll take some shots on him. But assuming that the starting lineup here is Porter, Green, Matthews, Tate and Wood. Like, I think Josh Christopher is getting probably more minutes than Nwaba. I think that Kenyon Martin Jr. is getting more minutes than Nwaba. I'm assuming Daniel Tice is the backup center here. Like that, the path to Nwaba playing a lot of minutes, I think, is that they just condense the rotation and Tice still doesn't play, but that's not what I'm expecting.
Right. I hear you. Let me see. Have we gotten an update anytime soon? I don't know
8
if you've
minutes
checked
ago,
out.
and we have him at 19%.
We still do? Okay. Do you like anything else from Houston then?
Not really. Like Christian Wood, Porter, Tate, Green, even Josh Christopher, I think are all reasonable options. None of them stand out as top plays. I'd like Wood more where he's power forward eligible. But it's just difficult, especially with him getting 16% ownership at 7K on DraftKings. I would still rather go to Portis. I'd rather go to Nurkic. It's if you were low owned, I'd be more interested, but I think it's a pretty tough spot for him. And I don't feel that comfortable expecting more than like 32, 33 minutes.
All right. Let's induct some people into the Hall of Fame here. I have a feeling you might make an appearance, Adam.
I don't know if anybody got my screenshot.
Oh, they did. They did, man. Let's do it. Awesemo Hall of Fame. Every single day, every night, we induct you guys, new people, into the Hall of Fame. Old people get inducted twice. We don't care around here. We just want to show the wins. And if you use the avatar, awesemo.com/avatar, download that, use it at Yahoo, DraftKings, FanDuel, wherever. Finish top 3 in a field of 5,000 or more, and tweet us at Awesemo HOF. Of course, include Adam and myself in that as well. We'd like to see that. We'll not only induct you into the Hall of Fame, not only will you receive all that tender love on Twitter, but you get a free month of Awesemo Plus Platinum. Like I said earlier, every single thing on the site, not just for football, or basketball, but for every sport that we have. If they have contests out there, we got content and we got tools for all of the sites. So entirely free. Or if you're just proud of a win, even if it doesn't qualify, hit us up anyway and get yourself on here, because it's all the same, man, even if you're not catching that free month. So awesemo.com/avatars. Kick it off. Like I said, first one on the board, Adam, 70K, second place, 600,000, afternoon only rush. James Conner did a decent job of getting you there. And then that big 62-yard Rashad Penny run at the end of that game was huge for you.
Yeah, it was. Definitely kind of came out of nowhere.
Congrats, dude.
Thanks.
Hey, Mike Lawrence, how about that? Producer over at Awesemo. Shout out to the homies at Awesemo. Took down the $33 NFL bomb last night with a goose egg, but more importantly, I got Emac's glorious mug up to the top. Beautiful. Emac 2024. That's sweet, man. $2,000. Congrats to our buddy Mike Lawrence. Andres Alfonso. Thank you, Eric and Ben, for a great live before lock show. Helped me take down the first event of the year. Keep up the great work. Awesemo team. $1,000. Little PGA action. Golf is back. Check out all the content we've got. Jordan Lockhart, no surprise, making an appearance. Dabbling in the PGA world. 20K win right there to our boy Locks. Congratulations. It's going to be time to quit that car dealership soon, man. Jansen White, if a Seattle stack could win Awesemo $1 million, it could win me a couple thousand. Thanks for everything, guys. Congrats, dude. 1,500 to you. Looks like we had some good days over here yesterday in the NFL streets. Woody C, $500 second place. Extremely tilting finish in the early slate mini with P. Ryan, but I'll take it. Yeah, man. Told you, Chris Evans. It's going to be Chris Evans Day, but congrats. Still second place, $500. That's awesome. Congrats to all you guys. Welcome to the Hall of Fame. And collect those free months. If you tweet us at Awesemo, HOF, we'll hit you up and get you that free month as well. So congrats to all of you guys. Adam, congrats to you, man. Let's keep this one rolling. Cleveland, Sacramento, 2 games left. All right, we're making good time here. We're pacing it well. We got almost 550 likes, 2,500 people watching. It's a good night. Talk to me about Cleveland. Yes, Darius Garland is active for this one. They're 5-point favorites against Sacramento. Game has a 219.5 total. I guess we can kick it off at the top, but nobody right now projected for double-digit ownership on this entire Cleveland squad. Highest is Rajon Rondo.
Yeah, and I don't really think anybody here should be getting a lot of ownership, but it does make them appealing in tournaments, kind of just as like that last piece in where they still have a very high ceiling because it's a good matchup against the Kings. They have productive, per minute guys. The real reason that they're not getting much ownership is just that there's teams that are less healthy where guys really stand out, but this is still a good spot for Cleveland. So, you mentioned Rondo at 3,300. He played about 18 minutes last game. Garland played like 38 or 39. So you got some run alongside Garland. Makes him look decent. I mean, he's a good point per minute guy, but even looking at some of the more expensive guys, Evan Mobley at 7,300, only pulling 8% ownership, doesn't look bad. Jared Allen is a center, which sucks, but still certainly capable of going for 45, 50 at 7,900. Garland at 4% should play a ton of minutes here. Pretty expensive, same price point as Kyrie, so it doesn't look great, but at low ownership still can get you there in tournament. So I think Rondo makes sense as a value as long as the ownership's not too high. Mobley at 7,300 actually made my tournament video earlier for I think both DraftKings and FanDuel, just going a little bit under owned, I think.
We had a super chat from Ruguru. Y'all are recommending a lot of chalk. Any good leverage plays? I think we've given out some pretty decent low-owned options throughout the day. I don't know. You got any good leverage plays you like? We'll get to that Knicks news in a second. You got any low-owned plays?
I mean, Mobley from this game. And see, yeah, someone's right. Yesterday in the Cleveland Golden State game, Rondo did play 28 minutes. Garland played 32 there. So I think that like he's definitely not a lock to play 28 again. But even in the first half, he played 10 minutes. I think it's likely you're getting at least 18 to 20 from Rondo.
All right. Thanks for the super chat. Thomas, thank you for the super chat as well. If you had a question or a comment, throw it in there. Jordan, you can keep an eye on that. I'm assuming he might have had one and just messed that up, but thanks, man. All right, let's circle back, sorry, to the Knicks. They're without Nerlens Noel and Kemba Walker. Both have been ruled out. And Evan Fournier is still a game time decision. That makes this that makes this even more tough. We're talking about the Knicks. The Kemba's out, Noel's out, and Fournier is still a game time decision. Yeah,
so Kemba out basically assures that Burks should remain in the starting lineup, should play a bunch of minutes at 5,600, makes him look like a good play. Still, I don't think anything special. He's around a 0.9 fantasy point per minute guy. Should probably give you 35, 36 minutes. But that looks pretty likely with Kemba out. Fournier still matters. I mean, like I said before, last game you got quickly starting in his place, playing 36 minutes. He would look good at 4,900 if Fournier is out. Barrett would look better at 6,400 as well. If Fournier is in, I think I'm still pretty much just interested in Randall and Burks.
All right. What about on the other side where you've got the Kings coming into this one as dogs? Harrison Barnes, Tyrese Halliburton, De'Aaron Fox. Now, all of them getting a little bit here. Halliburton's fallen below 7K. De'Aaron Fox not exactly having the most spectacular season, but his price point is 7,600 now on DraftKings, which is amazingly up from where it was. I mean, what a fall from grace from a guy that last year we saw him eclipse 10K on DraftKings at one point.
Yeah, he's not been great this year. The minutes are still there. Played another 36 minutes last night. Certainly can get there in tournaments, but this is also a pretty tough matchup. I mean, Cleveland's not a bad team defensively. It's not a really appealing spot to get to. So, if you land on some De'Aaron Fox, it's fine, but I'm not really going out of my way to get there.
Do you like anything here?
Not really. Alex Len at 3,800, I think is fine. But the issue is this just isn't really a slate where I think that getting a good point per dollar score from a cheap center, but not a lot of like actual points is going to be that good. Like I think I would rather be taking some shots on like the Rajon Rondo, Ben McLemore type $3,300 guys, and then using two legitimate high upside centers than using a lot of Alex Len, assuming he's going to play 24 minutes or so. Yeah, I mean, Halliburton, Barnes, Hield, it's not like they're bad. They're just pretty far down the list of guys that I want to get to.
Ryan says, I love that Lavi just knows Adam's facial expression now, knows he wasn't, or his wasn't listening face. Yeah, we've done shows long enough together where when you kind of looked over Deer and I was like, I'm going to repeat myself before he can tell me he wasn't listening.
I was looking at the Kings players, like, who the hell are you talking about?
Who was it? Did I get the wrong player?
No, you went back to the Knicks. But I didn't hear you go back to the Knicks.
My fault. Yeah, with the news that broke, I figured we went. Okay, I got you. Clown.
Yeah, because like I missed the beginning of what you said. Normally I can pick up on the end and know where we're at. And so then you're like talking about Quickly and Kemba, and I'm just like,
I threw you for a loop. Yeah. Clown, and I saw that super chat earlier, man, and I forgot to mention it, but congrats. I know you said you took down some 20s yesterday. So congrats to that. And thanks for both super chats. He says Fox or Kyrie with Harden out. I mean, this Kyrie price point against Portland is really hard not to like, Adam. We can make the pivot to Brooklyn right now, actually, to close out the show.
So I prefer Kyrie. And then I did want to touch on one other thing. Sure. Someone in chat said they think Fox will sit tonight. I'm not going to go so far as to say I think that he will, but definitely be prepared for that news. He was kind of like a late game time decision yesterday where he kind of just came out of nowhere and they were like, oh, he might sit. And then he played. Now you have the back-to-back. So at least be prepared to swap some stuff around.
Okay, yeah. As of now, he's not on the injury report as questionable, but yeah, that could definitely happen. All right, Brooklyn. Let's get to it, man. James Harden is sidelined for this one, which is massive because a lot of these prices have come down with the return of Kyrie. They're not going to come down an insane amount all the time because Kyrie can only play on the road, but like he played one game and then missed two, Adam, right? And now he's playing another one in Portland. But you'd be hard pressed to find many better matchups than this. Portland is 29th in defensive rating. They're essentially as bad defensively as the Houston Rockets are. They don't play at as fast a pace, but they're down a number of players. Not to say that any of them are spectacular defensive players, but Kyrie Irving, I mean, let's just dive into him at his current price point because he's priced for Harden to be active tonight, hands down. Yeah,
for sure. He played 32 minutes last game. I don't think there's any real reason he can't play more than that here. Like you said, it's a good matchup against Portland. So I have him with 19 total games last year without Harden and with Durant. 1.31 DraftKings points per minute, 28.8% usage rate, 27.6% assist percentage. Obviously, like your mileage may vary because this is his second game of the season, but assuming that we're just getting normal Kyrie Irving here, he looks fantastic at 8,800.
Do you think he staggers with Durant? Like Durant's going to see more minutes than Irving anyway, so he's clearly going to play probably like, I don't know. I'd probably give him 15, 16 minutes with Harden or with Irving off the floor.
Yeah, I basically would expect the rotations today to look like what they did yesterday, except with Irving instead of Harden, and Irving probably not playing 39 minutes in regulation, probably playing something like 34 or 35.
So obviously just Irving is an objectively good play. And did we update for Harden out? It looks like we did, but I thought they'd be a little bit higher owned than that. Huh.
We just got another ownership update 30 seconds ago. Durant and Irving both at like 16 to 17%.
Okay. You think that's low? You think that's high? You think that's right? I thought they'd be a little higher, but what do I know?
I think it seems about. I think it seems about right. They both look really good, but you have to keep in mind that you still have Giannis in a ridiculously good spot. You have these mid-range centers that look great. You have both of Durant and Irving kind of cutting into each other's ownership as well. So there's a lot of good plays today. I think 16 to 17% seems pretty reasonable.
Yeah, you're probably right. It is a good matchup, but that's not everything. And other players have some great matchups as well. And then, key players missing from their teams too. How much do you like Durant?
A lot. The only minor concern I have is that this is, I believe, a makeup game. Like, they were not supposed to play this game today, I don't think. And they did travel from Brooklyn yesterday to play this game in Portland. So you can't really do anything with that. I guess I'm just saying, like, it wouldn't be shocking if Kevin Durant kind of looked like shit, but what can you do? So I still think Durant looks good here. He's averaged 1.5 DraftKings points per minute in the 19 games he's played with Kyrie and without Harden since last year. So makes him look very, very good. And I still expect he would play around 38 minutes.
Whoa, you're right. Yeah, they played yesterday at home and now they're playing today in Portland.
Yep.
That's significant.
Yeah, I'm actually kind of
surprised. But Irving hasn't though. So, I mean, that's one piece of the puzzle.
Right. Yeah. So I'm not really concerned. I'm not concerned about Durant either, but Irving didn't play yesterday. So even less concerned about him.
That's what I'm saying. Yeah.
I'm kind of surprised that Brooklyn's 9-point favorites here.
Yeah. I guess, I mean, it's with Vegas right now, I guess it's not as big a deal as, like you said, there's nothing you can really do to quantify that. You just,
right. Yeah. Like I'm not doing anything different. Like, it's a well-known fact that happened. They are still 9-point favorites. I'm not going to like just beat Vegas lines, an hour before lock by adjusting it based on like a whim. But it's just one of those, like, I think it's kind of interesting. Like, it wouldn't be shocking if they kind of just laid an egg here, but they still have a 119 implied total. I'm fine going with that.
All right. Anything else for Brooklyn? LaMarcus Aldridge, by the way, is out as well. We're up against it, but is there anything else you like for Brooklyn? If not, hit on Portland.
Yeah, kind of just some secondary spots. Claxton at 5K isn't bad, but again, he's only a center, which kind of sucks. Patty Mills at 4,900 becomes mildly appealing, I think, but you still have Irving, so it's not really that exciting. And then Cam Thomas went from essentially out of the rotation to playing 30 minutes yesterday. I hadn't really expected him to play much today, thinking Harden was in, but now maybe you get mid-20s again at 3,800, so not the worst start throw, but I think the obvious priorities are Irving and Durant. On the other side with Portland, you have some of the best plays on the entire slate. 7K Yusuf Nurkic coming off of 38.5 minutes yesterday. He was playing a lot before his 2-week absence. He's been playing a lot since coming back. They need him offensively. They need to run the offense through him. He's got about a 28% usage rate without Lillard and McCollum. He just still looks really, really good. He's 7K, just pretty clearly underpriced. Anthony Simons at 6,400 should give you 36 minutes or so. He's got a 26.5% usage rate in games without McCollum and Lillard since the start of last season. He still looks very, very good at 6,400. Little, Covington both look like not the same level of play as Nurkic and Simons, but still good values at their respective price points. And then you should get another start from $3,300 Ben McLemore. He played about 26 minutes yesterday, but he also dealt with some foul trouble. I think that if he can avoid fouls here, it's likely he gives you 30 minutes or so at 3,300, which is pretty appealing.
And you guys are right in chat. Yes, it was a 1 p.m. game yesterday. It also went to overtime though, and Kevin Durant played 43 minutes. So, do with that information as you please. But whatever you do, stick around and watch Live Before Lock with Josh and Greg coming up next. And guess what? After it locks, you should be tuning in to Ben Rasa and Matt Gajewski because they got you covered. It is the college national championship game Live Before Lock with two of the best DFS betting college minds out there in Ben and Gajewski. So Josh and Greg coming up next. After that, it's Ben, it's Matt taking you home till 8 o'clock. We'll catch you back here soon. Thanks as always for watching, guys. Peace. Looks like Josh is logged into the Awesemo account.
that news that just came out. Oh, okay. And we are live. Welcome to NBA Live Before Lock. As Greg steps on my intro, I am Josh Engleman, and just in case you were curious, that is Greg Ehrenberg on the opposite side. We are brought to you by Yahoo Fantasy. It is Monday, January 10th. Tons to talk about. 54 minutes to do so until we get to lock. If you haven't done it yet and you're part of the 2,700 people that are in here, hit that thumbs up. It helps us out a ton. Subscribe to the channel. Hit the notification bell so you know when everything goes live. Greg, what did you need to say? There goes
Brogdon's out. Chris Duarte's out. It's funny because you had said, what's that news that just came through? And we got insignificant news. And then we got significant news right after, because the news that we just got a notification for in our Slack channel, it was that, was it the Bobo one? So we had like Bobo wasn't playing, which like, whatever, it doesn't matter. And then after that, we get the news that Chris Duarte, he went home for a personal matter. He's out today. Torrey Craig will be playing, and then Malcolm Brogdon also out with the Achilles injury. So some unexpected news, which means once again, we have to talk about these stupid Pacers players.
I know. I'm slowly pulling up all of the rates for everybody now. This is probably not going to be all that easy to do, but I guess we'll take our best shot. No LeVert, no Brogdon, no TJ McConnell, no TJ Warren. Those are all of like the relevant names, right?
Yeah. So there is, let's see, is there anybody else we missed? TJ McConnell, Karis LeVert. I think you mentioned both of them.
Yeah. So let's break it down because I think it's pretty important. We've seen it as of late. So Brogdon just immediately comes back out of the lineup. We're going to go, something in the neighborhood of 32 minutes to Kiefer Sykes, 32 minutes to Dwayne Washington. Anything crazy there so far?
Not crazy, but are we getting to a point where they're just going to start Lance Stevenson over Sykes or Washington? Like, he's been playing legitimately well as of late. I don't buy into any of it, but he's been closing games.
Yeah, I don't think it's crazy if he closes the game. I don't know if I would say that he's been playing legitimately well. He's played 234 minutes or 230 minutes this season with a 54% true shooting and 23% from deep. So
I just mean the last two games with the Pacers where they've given him extended minutes. I'm looking.
And if we want to say that he's been good from a fantasy perspective, I can get behind that. And clearly he's interesting today from a fantasy perspective. There's no real way around that. Played 28 minutes 2 nights ago, played 32 minutes the nights before that. I mean, I think 28 is a pretty reasonable projection for Lance on a day like today. Where are you landing?
So I'm looking through it right now, but keep in mind also that they had Duarte last game. They don't have Duarte this game. I think we could be looking at closer to 30 minutes for Stevenson.
So obviously Sabonis and Turner are starting. I'm assuming it's Sykes, Washington, Holiday. Would you agree?
I think that's the most likely, but I would not be surprised if Stevenson ends up slotting in for Sykes, Washington, or Holiday. Also, Sykes has not been able to defend anybody at all. If you look at how teams have started to play the Pacers, they just attack Sykes on defense every time, and he has to come off the court.
I'm going to go to 28 on Lance. I think when push comes to shove, he's still, and look, I think his upside is 34 minutes today. Like, I think that is a very reasonable scenario. I guess I shouldn't just say that I like Sykes and Washington more. I mean, all three of these guys are guys that don't like really belong on an NBA floor in general. So they don't have any loyalty to any one of these guys.
Just one thing I wanted to say though, as it pertains to Sykes, I like his story a lot, and I wish more teams gave 10-day contracts to players like Sykes than DeMarcus Cousins or Lance Stevenson. I think if you accrue a certain amount of service time in the NBA, you shouldn't even be allowed to get a 10-day contract. Because I like the idea that Sykes is this guy who's never got an opportunity to play in the NBA. He gets the 10-day contract. They extend him for the rest of the season. That's life-changing for him. The fact that, DeMarcus Cousins or Isaiah Thomas get to play on like their 8th team in the last 5 years, it does nothing for them at all. So I think the Sykes story is really cool. And I also want to just kind of rant about that to give you a little bit more time to set the minutes for the Pacers players. But that aside, I would be totally cool with saying like, hey, if you've been in the league for more than 5 years, you are not allowed to have a 10-day contract.
Torrey Craig is available.
Yes.
And I think that plays into this rotation a little bit more, because I would assume, like, I don't know how many minutes Jeremy Lamb can actually play at this point any longer. I got him in for 16. I think that's about what they're trying to have him do. Could he fall into like 22 or something? Sure. The Torrey Craig piece is a struggle because he plays a lot, or at least was playing pretty regularly. Had a stretch of 8 straight games where he averaged 21 minutes and now is back after missing the last 2. He complicates matters, I think, more than anything else for this Pacers team now, and not in a good way from a fantasy perspective.
No, I totally agree. So something else to consider too is, so not only was he out with COVID, but he also had an injury the last game he played in. I think he like pulled a groin muscle and had to leave the game sometime late. It wasn't significant from a fantasy standpoint. He played his regular minutes, but he still pulled his groin and wasn't able to finish the game. Then he gets COVID after that. So he's coming back from a couple of things.
All right. So I've pulled the stats since the beginning of last year to try and get a decent sample where at least 3 of the 4 of Warren, LeVert, Brogdon, and McConnell did not play in a game, to try to get a sort of cross section where, like, obviously sometimes one of these guys is going to be in and it becomes like a little bit problematic. Sabonis with a 25% usage rate. I don't think that that's all that different than what we would normally see. Justin Holiday is exactly who Justin Holiday is pretty much every time, no matter who's on the floor, who's off the floor. Miles Turner doesn't really see much of a bump. Dwayne Washington is at 22% usage across 182 minutes. That's about where I have him anyway. Sykes is at 16% usage in that scenario. I think that's an interesting piece. Lance probably doesn't have, 91 minutes for Lance in this query, 25.5% usage rate.
How many fantasy points per minute?
Don't have that in front of me here. Not on PPP stats, to my knowledge. I would have to calculate it. I mean, who's like, is Dwayne Washington? I mean, we've got Lance at 5,500 on DraftKings, 6,600 on FanDuel. Can we even play him on FanDuel at least? I would say basically no.
A lot of people are going to play him, which is something that makes me not want to play him, because he's been playing so ridiculously well from a fantasy standpoint. I suspect he's going to pick up some ownership when we get a refresh here, which I'm refreshing it now to see if we've had anything change. We have not yet. I think a lot of people are just going to want to gravitate towards Lance. He's kind of a fan favorite player. He's put up slate breaking fantasy scores his last couple times out. So I'm certainly, if he's picking up any kind of meaningful ownership, then I don't want to be there.
I don't anticipate having him. I think he looks like the 4th best guy on the Pacers, maybe even 5th. I think I prefer Sykes in Washington. You know, they're $700 and $900 cheaper than him. And I have to assume, at least for right now, that if I don't see Lance Stevenson's name in the starting lineup, I have to assume that Sykes and Washington are going to play more than him too. And at that point, I don't know how I could go to Stevenson over Sykes or Washington. He's interesting. There's a ceiling. There are more minutes there. Any sort of volume is a problem.
Yeah, I agree. It's certainly unstable. Just something else why I said the ownership matters to me. If he's, sub 1% owned, I'll take some stabs at him. Yeah. If he's going to be, 10, 15 plus % owned, then becomes less interesting for me. But let's talk about it from the other standpoint then. What if he starts?
Assuming he starts over who? I mean, he just you slot him in for 32 minutes and whoever isn't in the starting lineup over Sykes and Washington is just, they become Lance Stevenson. I think.
Yeah. Well,
Torrey Craig to me is a real problem. Like, he could play 26 minutes today.
That's true. He could.
I don't know where the hell
they minutes
come. Like, I don't know where those minutes come from. They can come from 5 different people.
Well, I think he's going to take a lot of Duarte's minutes, right? A lot of those minutes we could assume are going to go to Torrey Craig. Does O'Shea Brissett still have to play a significant role?
I gave him 20 minutes. I don't think he's anything that we need to really worry about.
I could see Brissett playing like 14 though.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, I mean, I think it's pretty easy to yank these minutes around for the rest of the Pacers because so many of these guys aren't legitimate NBA players. Like,
which
they don't
goes
have
for
a single bit of loyalty across the board.
I'm by the way, I'm rerunning lineups right now. I'm not going to get to any of these guys meaningfully.
I don't think that I am either. And I'm not mad about that.
And the difference too is when we had guys like Dwayne Washington or Kiefer Sykes where chalk plays it. By the way, I was on the wrong side of that also. I was not playing a whole bunch of Kiefer Sykes when he was, 40% owned and was cheap and was putting up a bunch of fantasy points. But I think the other thing too is they're not the same salary anymore. These guys aren't min price. They have an actual salary to them now that they're, 48, 4,700. It's about an appropriate price in my opinion.
I'll say this much. I just ran a crunch. I think I could see like 20 names on the sidebar in Fantasy Cruncher. None of them have a Pacers logo. So there are no real priorities here. Ownership leverage plays and GPPs is basically what we're looking at. I don't think that there's anything else of value.
Yep, I agree with that. And I keep we just got an ownership update. So now we could see what some of these Indiana guys look like. Even
better. Now I can actually run my crunch, which makes me very, very happy. What do we got? What are you seeing?
Not a lot of ownership. We got, so starting with DK, we've got 10% ownership going to Sabonis, 10-3. Once again, about a fair price point for him. Yeah. Miles Turner, 6,500, about a fair price point to him. Only 5% ownership though. Sykes is only projected for 2. Wait, let me make sure so there is no Brogdon here. There is no Duarte. So it is accounting for these guys being out.
Well, that's good.
But yeah, there it looks like there's pretty much no ownership going. 2% ownership to Kiefer Sykes.
Okay.
Dwayne Washington, 1% ownership. Lance Stevenson, 0.1. No, those have to change, right?
Well, I don't think they change all that much, but like Lance will get a natural bump of people will pick him because they know his name and they don't know Kiefer Sykes' name and they don't know Dwayne Washington's name just naturally. So I think like he ends up in like that 3-4 range, but I mean, I just ran my sims. I got Washington in 10. I got Sykes in 10. I got Lance in 7. That is 32 minutes, and 28 minutes respectively. I think that's about right. So yeah, I do think that they come up a little bit. And if they don't, then I actually like these guys a little bit.
Yeah, that was
shitty matchup too, by the way.
I was legitimately surprised to see Lance Stevenson project for less than 1% ownership.
This is a Boston team that is 26th in the league in pace. Indiana is 25th in the league in pace. I mean, this one's a slog too. So it's not exactly the type of game that you're like super excited to get a bunch of to begin with. You would kind of need these two teams to be playing different opponents in order to make them more interesting. So I don't know. Crunch is running now. Ownership, if it changes, will be interesting. But I assume if these guys continue to be low to not owned, I have like 10%-ish of Sykes, Washington, and Stevenson.
Fair enough. So that does have you overweight to the field on him. Technically, you like him as tournament plays.
Exactly. There we go. All right. What is the next spot we should actually be talking about here? Normally, I guess we would go to the guards, but I guess before we do anything, since it's 6:20 already and we've only talked about one thing, schedule for the rest of the day. This one's very important, everybody. We got a show after this one, and it's not your typical show. College football live before lock is up next for the national title game. You don't want to miss it. They're going from 7 to 8. We've also got free content on the site tonight. NBA player projections and NHL player projections are both free. Hit me with your favorite guards for tonight.
All right. So I guess let's talk about, I guess they kind of have to go hand in hand, Kyrie Irving and Kevin Durant. I know that they play different positions, but it's really hard to talk about one without the other. And I really don't know what to make of Kyrie Irving today. So I assume everybody's aware of this news by now. James Harden, he will not play today. I assume going forward, there's going to be a lot of rest with Kevin Durant and James Harden on the road because they have Kyrie on the road. They don't have him at home. I think they're going to stagger the times off for these guys. Kyrie, obviously, never going to play games in Brooklyn unless something changes. And I think we're just going to see, once a week or so, Durant or Harden is going to take a rest on the road. In fact, the Nets even said yesterday, Durant and Harden are both going to play today. And then obviously it didn't end up being the case because Harden just got rolled out. This is only Kyrie's second game of the season. And he looked pretty good in his first game. He played 32 minutes. I was surprised that he played 32. He was pretty efficient from the field. He got off to a slow start. He got going later. Do you think we just see a totally unrestricted Kyrie Irving now?
I gave him 34 minutes. If you told me that he played 36, I would totally believe it. He seems like he was actually doing things when he wasn't active with the team for a couple months. So, and I don't know. I don't have any real reason to suspect that he wouldn't be fully unleashed. If he was able to play 32 minutes in the first game back, I have to assume that there is no sort of minutes restriction for him.
Yeah, I think
I don't find him all that interesting, even at 8,800, which I'm pretty sure is going to be an unpopular opinion.
I have, let's see. So where's the field at on him now?
I guess I should be more specific. I don't find him nearly as interesting as the field does right now.
Okay, fair enough. I prefer him on DK to FanDuel. He's picking up 17.5% ownership on DraftKings right now, but 43.8% on FanDuel. So I view him as a vastly different play across the two sites. And I understand he's a little more expensive on DK, but the ceiling is so high for Kyrie Irving that I don't mind him being at 8,800, especially with James Harden out. In terms of what to make of his rate stats, no clue, because this is basically a new Nets team this year. Even last year, it's not like there was that much sample size on this team because they had guys who were in and out of the lineup all the time. So I don't know what we're really supposed to expect from Kyrie Irving, but I think there is a pretty high upside here, and he's not getting that much run on DK at 17.5% ownership.
Yeah, and to be fair, I think Kyrie Irving is an actual good play on FanDuel, but 44% owned or whatever it is right now is a staggering amount. 8,800 allows him to be a bit more interesting. We have Kyrie projected for 44.5 fantasy points on the site. Again, those projections are free if you want to check them out today. I got him at 43.2, so I'm short by a fantasy point, and that's going to have me coming in a little bit under the field on Kyrie and to a same degree to Kevin Durant. Doesn't make me feel great. It's certainly it's never fun to be under the field on guys that are actually good because Kyrie can go out there and drop 40 today because that is something that is in his bag, and I'm going to need him because he's going to hit his median projection of just points. That is not fun when you fade talented players. But for right now, I think there's just a lot else that I have more interest in.
Yeah, and that's also why I view him so differently on FanDuel compared to DK, just because, he's picking up a third of the ownership, or about a third of the ownership on DraftKings compared to FanDuel.
Given Primo's stint as a starter, I asked Pop if the plan for him was to still go to Austin after COVID. He said, yeah. Pop wasn't sure whether Primo and Landale would be available. Primo took a knee to the thigh versus the Nets, and Landale was getting his back work done in the training room. That's really big news. That's super annoying. That's going to come out at 6:55.
Yeah, so the other thing too, right now I'm assuming Primo starts. He's listed as probable on the injury report. If somebody's a game time decision, but what's that?
Is he really?
Yeah. So typically if somebody's listed as probable on the injury report, I don't really care too much that they bring up some kind of injury designation, but I'm assuming that he ends up starting today.
Yeah, I have him in as a starter. I actually didn't realize that he was probable. So I want to say that's much ado about nothing. Any quotes from Pop, but one, we all know how we felt about in the past about Pop and anything, and I don't think he gives a single shit about an injury designation. So let's hit this super chat quickly from Clownin. Said Giannis or Durant. For me, it's Giannis.
It is Giannis for me as well. And there does have to be a little bit of nuance with this in terms of Giannis what's the most recent run of ownership? I think Giannis might have been a little more popular when I looked earlier because I thought that Durant was a potential good way to get some ownership away from Giannis to go to some Durant. But now we've got on DK. Kevin Durant is projected for 18% ownership compared to 21% for Giannis. That's not a massive gap in ownership, and I have Giannis projected quite a bit higher.
Yeah, I've got Giannis as the highest scorer on this slate, and I'm about neutral to the field on him actually, which It's a little scary. Actually light on Bobby Portis too, which is really, really scary, but it's probably because I have Yusuf Nurkic in just about everything that I'm doing tonight. So can't wait till he gets scratched.
Yeah, I could get behind a lot of Nurkic today. We'll talk about centers afterwards, but Nurkic, Whiteside, lots of stuff to tilt over later.
Oh, absolutely. So I'm just going to try to look at some of the guard exposure that I had on my previous crunch. Nobody really crazy. Alec Burks pretty high. Anthony Simons pretty high, over the field at least. Josh Primo, assuming he's in. De'Aaron Fox, if he's 8%, I just like in tournaments. Who else stands out to you? Anybody else you're trying to get to?
Yeah, so Lonnie Walker is going to be fairly popular today, about 30% on both FanDuel and DraftKings. But considering the guys that are out for the Spurs and what his upside is, I do think it's warranted. We've got the Spurs, no Vassell, no Doug McDermott. That was a big one where McDermott was questionable early in the day when Adam and I were talking about this game on the injury report. And there's just so much that opens up for the Spurs if you then take Doug McDermott out, because he's played a lot of minutes for them this year. No Keldon Johnson, Zach Collins is still out, Thad Young is out, Derek White is still out, Trey Jones. Pretty thin team. And it seems like there's been a lot of these situations with Lonnie Walker where Pop has just found a way to not give him minutes, particularly if Primo is in any way limited. I just don't see how Walker doesn't get those minutes today.
Yep. I didn't say his name because I just was neutral to the field, but he is my fourth exposed guard. So I'm with you on Lonnie Walker. And by the way, I'm playing on DraftKings, not FanDuel today.
Ooh, so. Look at you. Look at you.
Everything that I've been saying is DraftKings related for this particular moment. And I actually just got, if I talk slow enough, just got my crunch finished. So I can actually see how things have updated for whatever nonsense is going on for the Indiana Pacers. And I can see what is actually popping up. I'm a little afraid to even see this. There's the pop-up from News God, Fred Katz. So
Evan Fournier's in.
Good.
That's good. I don't want to have to deal with more Knicks value.
No, and I also don't want to have to deal with like running a new crunch because Evan Fournier would have been out. Like that maintained what I had going, and that is exactly how I would want this to play out. Alrighty. So now that I refresh this, I'm getting to a bunch of Seth Curry. So I do hope that he ends up being in, given our current ownership projection.
Yeah, that is another big one. Seth Curry being questionable to play because the Sixers are down a whole bunch of guys in the backcourt, and he's been playing a ton of minutes.
All right. So I got to 11% Kiefer Sykes, 9% Dwayne Washington, 5% Lance Stevenson based on our current ownership projections.
I don't mind that.
So they are just guys that exist on this slate for me at this moment. I'll take it, I guess.
Yeah, and just touching on the Knicks thing for a second, Fournier's in. I had him in already. I still like getting to Alec Burks, though. Let's see, where do we have Burks for ownership right now? 32%. 32% on FanDuel now, 27% on DK. So that's gone up. But if you're looking at somebody for a cash game play, assuming Alec Burks starts, which I think is going to be the case, he plays so many minutes as a starter for Tibbs this year. And it's so weird because Tibbs starts Alec Burks like, all right, I guess he has to play the entire game. But then he comes off the bench and just barely plays him. So his minutes per game as a starter, 37 minutes per game. Off the bench, 21 minutes per game. Massive gap there. As long as he starts, he's a pretty high floor play and also a pretty high ceiling play. So I look at Burks a very strong cash game option.
Yeah, I've been liking Burks most of the day. I liked him particularly when he was like projected for 6% ownership. So I was hoping that Knicks news came out like late and broke the correct way for me because I was going to assume Burks was starting one way or the other. Didn't really get there for what I actually wanted, but still getting to Burks. So I'm happy with that. I'm going to go ahead and throw 150 dummy lineup. Well, maybe not dummy, but 150 placeholders in right now. Any guards that you're fading today? And for any particular reason, just because it happened or because you have an actual thought process, can go either direction.
Yeah. So one other thing, I'm going to refresh ownership to make sure I'm looking at the most recent numbers. There aren't that many guys that are super highly owned from a guard perspective. We've got Furkan Korkmaz. He's somebody I'm underweight to right now. He's projected for 22% ownership on DraftKings. I'm going to have to change my stance on that if Seth Curry gets ruled out. But if Seth Curry's in, Korkmaz has been all over the place this year. Remember that one slate where he was like 70% owned? He played 40 minutes and just had the worst fantasy game I've ever seen, where he shot like 1 of 16 from the field or something ridiculous. There's a really wide range of outcomes for Furkan Korkmaz. And it's not like he's all that cheap now. We're looking at him at 4,900 on DK. On FanDuel, Korkmaz is 5,300, over 20% on both sites. At that kind of salary, when he's picking up ownership, I'll just look elsewhere. It's not that I think he's a terrible points per dollar play, just a little bit too popular for me.
Well, there he goes. Seth Curry ruled out.
All right. So, screw everything I said about Korkmaz. Now I'm going to have to end up playing him.
Yeah. Screw everything I just said about liking Seth Curry and how that was going to be a part of my day. Let's do the same sort of thing we just did previously. First, as we start getting this done, I want to get this read out of the way now. And not that I'm trying to rush through it, but I get a sneaky suspicion we're going to do this every 10 minutes and it's going to be a problem. So shout out to Yahoo for being the presenting sponsor of this show. Awesemo.com/Yahoo-promo. You can see the link. Well, I'm on the side of the screen, so I guess you can see the link over there. I hope I'm pointing in the right direction. It's on the banner at the top. You guys know the drill. You can get 1 free month of Awesemo Plus Platinum and $10 free of site credit by clicking the link in the description of this video or following the link that I just described. You're going to need to play in a paid contest and make a small deposit. We will then email you with a coupon code for your Awesemo Plus subscription. Yahoo's got the $75,000 NBA Monday Night Baller going on tonight. We've got DFS tools and projections on our site that are designed specifically for Yahoo, so that you can win big. So go check out Yahoo now. Make sure you're hitting up that link. This one is really, really, really problematic for Philadelphia. No first point guard, second point guard, or third point guard. Is it Isaiah? I don't know if it's Isaiah Joe season either.
I like Embiid quite a bit now.
I liked him quite a bit before.
I think there a lot of the offense just has to run through him now, though.
I actually think Adam just sent me the message that I was thinking originally. Tobias point guard, and that feels like the most likely scenario to me. That he is nominally the guy that starts each possession.
Yeah, I think that makes sense. I still think a lot of the possessions, though, is going to be Joel Embiid with the ball in the center of the court and shooters around him.
I definitely think it's going to be a lot of possessions of the two of them doing whatever the hell it is that they would like to do. That's for sure. Because after Joel Embiid and then Tobias Harris, there aren't any other guys that I think are going to be taking over the ball for this Philly team at this point. So how many minutes can Isaiah Joe play today? Is that 24 and they close with something like Korkmaz, Danny Green, Thibault, Tobias Harris, Embiid?
Let's see. He played 21 minutes in a game last week. It was a blowout. He's played as many as 26 minutes.
Yeah. I think that's about what I'm going to give him too.
Let's see. What was the situation where he played 26? There was no Maxey. There was no Korkmaz. There was no Milton. There was no Dieng, no Springer. That's not that much different from this situation.
Well, we know that center's set. Embiid
Yes.
and Drummond are essentially splitting everything there. Power forward is essentially set as well, whether that's you're calling it Harris, Thibault, Niang. Like, we're not adding more people to that side of the rotation. From a guard's perspective, they don't have any others other than, I guess, Charlie Brown, which I got to figure out what team I have him on, or if I have him on a team. As long as Lucy doesn't pull the football away, we should be fine.
With what's going on in the NBA season, I think you could pretty confidently say that's going to happen. But
yeah,
12 minutes for Charlie Brown last game. He probably plays like 14 minutes.
Yeah, I have. How many more minutes can Danny Green play? That I actually think is a relevant discussion point.
Danny Green seems so broken. Let's see.
Yeah, I don't think he's like fantastic, but 23, 24, 15 over his last three. He's sort of the guy where if he falls into more minutes, it becomes interesting. I just don't know if he can.
I'm looking at his box score. Look at the minutes he played before he had COVID. He played 40 minutes in back-to-back games.
Yeah, I know.
They might have to do that again. Doesn't mean he's going to have a good fantasy game. He sucks for fantasy, but let's see, where is he even priced? Haven't thought about Danny Green at all today. Danny Green is 3,800 on DK. Danny Green is 4,300 on FanDuel.
I mean, I guess Niang could play like 2 more minutes and we start knocking people down the positional spectrum. Basically, where I've got it now is 26 minutes to Joe, 14 to Charlie Brown, Maybe Aaron Henry sees like a random rotation or any other random person. 34 for Korkmaz. I went to 26 on Danny Green. If is Danny Green starting? No Jock Landale, Josh Primo available to play. I don't think Jock Landale really matters in this situation. It just becomes Drew Eubanks.
Yeah.
And they also have Devontae Kaycock. So,
and did that come with a starting lineup? Is Primo starting?
Doesn't say.
Okay.
Doesn't say. So I'm going to see if I can find anything else interesting for Philadelphia before I try to hustle and get this crunch run. Past 2 years, we have no point guard. Go for whatever you were about to say.
I was going to say, how many minutes is Korkmaz? I guess Korkmaz just plays like 38 minutes now.
He might. Wait, is he? Do I have this team right?
It sucks how I go from finishing a sentence about how I want. You ask me which guard do I want to be underweight to the field on. I talk about Furkan Korkmaz while I want to be underweight to the field on Furkan Korkmaz, with the caveat that I said that I'm going to have to change my opinion if Seth Curry gets ruled out. As soon as I finish the sentence, Seth Curry gets ruled out. So now I'm looking at Furkan Korkmaz, and I have to give him a bunch of minutes that's going to make me get to him.
By the way, Giannis, Wes Matthews, Jordan Nwora, Chris Middleton, Bobby Portis for the Bucks, which is, I assume, what we were expecting.
Yes.
All right. So over the past 2 seasons, with at least 2 of Maxey, Milton, and Curry off, because I need to leave at least one of those guys out there to get any sort of reasonable sample. Otherwise, this isn't going to exist. But I don't really care who that particular person is. Oh, I know why I set it to 3. I also need to take stupid Ben Simmons off in order to remember that he was actually on the team last year.
He mattered at one point.
He did indeed. Joel Embiid in 263 possessions, 128 minutes, with at least 3 of Maxey, Milton, Curry, and Ben Simmons off the floor. 45% usage rate.
Yeah, I mean, look at this team. Who else is shooting? He might be my favorite pay-up option now.
It's becoming problematic. Tobias Harris in the same scenario, only a 21% usage rate. Danny Green has played the most possessions in this scenario, which makes me a little nervous given the fact that I just don't know how long he can actually play. Let's see if Embiid ends up with an interesting assist rate. And it doesn't appear that he does. He has 17 assists in 263 possessions. That is not really an interesting assist rate. But the real guy that we need to worry about here is Tobias Harris, who also has 12 assists in 242 possessions. So he doesn't really get that bump either.
Do they just not pass?
Yeah, more or less.
It's just
more or less.
Just give the ball to Embiid and be like, hey, score, do stuff.
Evidently, yeah. I'm going to get a lot of Embiid. I'm clearly going to get a lot of Furkan Korkmaz now, which I think is going to just be a true disaster.
Mm-hmm.
I don't like ever getting to Furkan Korkmaz. 147 possessions in this same scenario, 19.5% usage rate. So nothing too crazy there. That's about where I'm going to bring him in. I'm good now on Philly. I think Joel Embiid looks fantastic. I certainly feel better about playing someone like Tobias Harris or Korkmaz or whatever, but I don't think that we've created anything new or anything that we have to immediately get to.
Well, I wasn't going to play Korkmaz very much before this, and I was now. So this is going to be something that changes pretty significantly for me. And Korkmaz's ownership went up a little bit, not that much though. He went from 24% to 30% on DK. Over on FanDuel, Korkmaz is at 30% now. He was at 22%. I said the number was before.
Yeah,
I think this is a much bigger boost for Korkmaz than the way the field is reacting to it.
I think I agree as well. His minutes are just so much safer now. What do you want to do with Isaiah Joe at the flat 3K?
Flyer. There's a lot of value on this slate, and he's not somebody I look at as being I need to get to. If I have 5 to 10% of Isaiah Joe, so be it. But this isn't somebody who's going to be in a massive portion of my lineups.
That makes sense. Yeah, he's I assume I get a little bit, 5 to 10% as a value option and sort of like unlock a little bit more of the upper end of this slate, but we'll find out. 20 minutes to go until lock. If you haven't hit the like button yet, do so now. 3,450 people in here. We got a packed house, man. This is kind of fun. Only 740 likes though. So that number needs to be 1,000 like immediately, right?
Yeah, for every time you like this video, Furkan Korkmaz scores an extra fantasy point tonight.
Derek with the super chat said, any way to fit Embiid and Giannis in the same FanDuel lineup? I'm sure that isn't all that difficult today.
Yeah, there's enough value. It's not problematic. Now you can't fit Kyrie and Durant in that lineup too, but yeah, getting 2 stars is not an issue today.
No, I'd be surprised if you couldn't, if I'm being honest. There's just right now we just have an overwhelming amount of value clear across the board. All right, time to, I guess, actually run this crunch. Have we gotten an ownership update?
Yes, we just did. And somebody else who I am getting to that I wasn't before is Matisse Thybulle.
Okay.
Thybulle is projected for only 10% ownership on DraftKings at 3,900. He's a little more popular on FanDuel, which isn't all that surprising. His game is much better suited for FanDuel because of the steals and blocks bonus. But I think Thybulle could potentially play a whole lot of minutes today, and I like him at that 10% ownership number.
I had a little bit earlier, like 4%. We'll see if that changes any. I don't think that it really does. DraftKings is just such a different play than it is on FanDuel, just because so much of his value is in steals. And if he's not getting them, that's going to be problematic on DraftKings. So I'm sure he's going to knock down like 6 corner threes now.
Somebody else has to shoot other than Embiid at some point. He's going to play a lot.
Really a problem for me. Nas Little.
Let's see. Where do I have? He's in about 20% of my lineups right now.
I got a sneaky suspicion I'm going to have him in like 40. And doesn't exactly make me happy. He is not that kind of guy, but sometimes he is. And that's really there's just so much playing time to go around for him right now.
Yeah, and I mean, the other thing too is with Portland, not only do we have McCollum out, I don't think Dame's going to play again this season, but whatever. He's out for today, and long term, what does it matter? But for at least for DFS purposes, but I mean, Dame played in the Olympics. He got injured. That was July. He sat out August, September, October, comes back for the start of the NBA season. The injury is still an issue. And now I think just holding him out for a couple of weeks is going to make a difference. He already tried sitting out for a few months. It didn't change anything. So it seems to me there's some sort of other intervention, whether it's surgery or something else. But as it pertains to Nas Little, there's a lot of guys out for Portland. I'm just not sure he's the guy who, because there's a lot of players out, he just takes on a bunch of usage. I think Nurkic is going to take all the shots today.
I'm going to have quite a bit of Nurk as well. 5K on DraftKings. I mean, we're talking about a boom score of needing 35. Like, to me, that isn't all that crazy for someone that's probably projected around 30 fantasy points. Like, I think he gets to that mark where you're happy with what he did pretty easily.
So, you know what I'm really happy about? Very happy about this. My Embiid ownership was able to reduce some of my shares of Hassan Whiteside, who I hate.
I'm hoping my Embiid ownership brings my natural Nurkic ownership down and like balances the two out. By the way, we got 2 starting lineups. Hayes, Cunningham, Diallo, Bay, and Stewart for the Pistons. Conley, Mitchell, Bogdanovich, O'Neal, Whiteside for the Jazz. Both exactly what we were expecting.
Yeah, I really want to see that Spurs starting lineup.
Adam Spillane, he's a Miami beat writer, thinks that Tice might get the start today. Apparently DJ Augustine could see some playing time with Eric Gordon unavailable. That to me is just sort of like backup point guard run, if anything. So I don't think it matters.
Why would a Miami beat writer say Tice is starting though? Like,
I don't know why I said Houston. Sorry, Houston.
Oh, okay.
Houston. I don't know why I said Miami there. Apologies, Houston.
All good.
I assume that's supposed to be Simons in that super chat. So Simons or Garland and Washington or Whiteside. Oh God. I mean, Simons for me over Garland and Whiteside for me over Washington, assuming we're just trying to like pick who the best plays are in that 1v1.
I'm still like, there's a big price gap between Darius Garland and Anthony Simons.
There's not a Simmons on this slate, right? That I'm missing. It's got to be Simons, right?
But
yeah, I know they're completely different plays.
But that's also what's going to be like. I'm not playing Darius Garland, so whatever. He's not the answer. But I have Garland project more fantasy points than Anthony Simons. Anthony Simons is 6,400 on DK. Garland is 8,900.
Yeah, that one's tough.
I have more exposure to Simons than Garland. I have more exposure to Whiteside than Washington.
Yeah, and that says a lot because I don't think you and I are both all that interested. I don't want to say not interested in Whiteside, but finding other ways to not be with him today. Because he's clearly a good point per dollar play. I don't think that we could have much of a disagreement on that one.
No, it's very good points per dollar play.
Yeah. So, whew. Adam wants to know if I'm still getting Nurk as far and away the best play on the slate. I am. Embiid, though, is coming in second in my exposure right now. I don't know what that's going to mean when I start sorting, but we shall see. And we are 56 likes away from 1,000, so seems about time for us to do that bad boy.
Yeah, probably already got there by the time you finish the sentence.
I hope so, man. I hope so. So we should have probably talked about forwards at this point in time, but let's just open it up. Guys that we haven't talked about yet that you're getting a lot of. I've talked about Nurkic a lot. To me, he's the best play on the slate today. He's going to be my most exposed player, or at least maybe second. Who are you landing on? Who are your most exposed guys right now that we haven't talked about?
So just rerunning my lineups right now. I'd like to say I hope for the last time, but I know it's not going to be for the last time. So Giannis still for me. I'm actually getting to more of Embiid as a pay up option than Giannis now, but Giannis is still my most exposed pay up forward option for today. We talked about Korkmaz. He has forward eligibility, somebody that I'm getting to at a pretty good clip. Durant, his exposure for me has come way down now that we have Embiid to spend up for. I don't feel comfortable with this, but once again, no James Harden for the Nets. I understand why this is a better spot for Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving. I have them both projected fairly well. I just have guys like Embiid and Giannis projected a lot higher now, and they become higher priorities for me. So the one big sacrifice of getting to more Embiid is going to be that it really takes out the amount of Durant exposure I have.
I'm hoping that I have a sneaky suspicion that I'm going to have the same situation as you, that Embiid is going to go up and I'm not really going to be getting to the Durant piece of this one, which is what it is, I guess, at this point. I'm okay with it, but it's clearly not something that makes me feel good.
No, I'm going to get him because I have him less than 10% of my lineups right now. So I'm just going to up him a little bit because I don't want that. I'm going to be underweight to him. Just because once again, I think that Giannis and Embiid are better plays today than Durant, and there's not unlimited salary. I can't just play everybody. So that's just one of the sacrifices I have to make here.
All righty. Just got a couple more tweaks here that I need to make. Crunch is just about done at this point, which is, we're getting there. At least we're getting there.
Somebody else that we haven't talked about, he is guard and forward eligibility that I'm kind of surprised doesn't pick up more ownership, is Ben McLemore. 3,300 on DK, 3,900 on FanDuel. He's only picking up 5% ownership on FanDuel. It's such a cheap price point, and there's so many guys that are out for Portland. I think the McLemore warrants a little bit more exposure than that, because who else is going to shoot for this team? We talked about how Nurkic is going to take on all the usage he can handle, which I do agree is certainly something that's going to happen. Same with Simon. Simons and Nurkic are going to take a ton of shots. But I think there's a lot of potential minutes available for Ben McLemore, who should also be starting today. So I didn't give McLemore like 36 minutes or anything like that, but I think it's within the realm of possibilities that he plays something like that.
I've got about 12% right now. I'm just neutral to the field. I don't totally trust how many minutes he could play. I gave him 28. I might be a little light there. I just think like the rest of it after Nurkic, Little, and Simons is basically, and Covington is basically just whatever's playing best at the time. But I like the shout. Like if I gave him 30 minutes or 32 minutes, I'd be getting more as a value play. We did just get two more super chats. One from CS, favorite 4,500 and under value plays on DraftKings. Kata Bates, Diop, Josh Primo, Lonnie Walker. So the Spurs.
Yeah, for me, Primo, Walker, and McLemore.
Okay. And then Corey Randall, is today the day I play Alex Len and he gets 10 minutes and sits the rest of the game? It certainly could be.
Well, hopefully
I don't
it's not
trust
the day
anything the Kings are doing.
Hopefully it's not the day you play Alex Len. That's an easy way to avoid that situation, isn't it?
Yeah. I wouldn't be playing Len. I mean, I think he's worth a shot. I don't think he's any sort of priority given how good center is today.
Yeah, there's too many big men for me to say you should be playing him, particularly if you're only playing one lineup. Yeah. I would not have Alex Len in that lineup.
Like, he could conceivably play 22 minutes. If he got 30, then you're going to want him. But I don't like the Kings could play 10 different dudes at center.
Yeah. Let me see. Do I have any exposure to him? I don't have him in my lineups today.
I know that I don't either.
Yeah. So I'm going to, if I'm not playing him, I can't tell you to play him. So the way you should be going at center is with other guys. Play Embiid, play Nurkic. You can play Whiteside, but I wouldn't get to Len.
9 minutes to go until lock. If you don't have your lineups in or something resembling your lineups, you should probably do that sooner rather than later. It's about that time now for you to get that done. I am also getting to that point where it all needs to happen. So I do have placeholders in there right now. I'm feeling pretty good. Just got to make a couple tweaks at this point. So got another super chat. I hear what you're saying, Greg, about McLemore, but don't you think Rondo's upside is higher at 3,300, even though he will probably play less minutes? That one's a firm no for me.
So obviously I would have liked Rondo a whole bunch if Darius Garland got ruled out. Darius Garland did not get ruled out. Darius Garland is playing. I don't see any reason to think that Rondo's role is going to change. No. There's not something that's happened with the Cleveland Cavaliers that makes me think all of a sudden, oh, Rondo's going. And I know that people just call me this Rajon Rondo hater. And yeah, he played 29 minutes last game, but also keep in mind that Garland only played 32. What else happened in that game? Pangos was out of the rotation. Goodwin was out of the rotation. How many minutes are you giving Rondo today?
I think I gave him 18 or something, backup point guard, and then a couple alongside. Just going off the top of my head here.
Yeah, I don't see Garland only playing 32 minutes again today. And something else to consider too, Rondo compared to McLemore. McLemore's eligibility way more positions. We've got Rondo is point guard only, whereas McLemore has eligibility on DK at shooting guard. Oh, so I thought McLemore was shooting guard and small forward. I guess not. All right. Well, I've McLemore projected for more fantasy points than Rondo either way. But here's why I think the upside is higher for McLemore. Here are all of the guys that are out for Portland today. They have no CJ McCollum, no Damian Lillard, and they have no Norman Powell and no Larry Nance. Yeah. That's a massive amount of minutes to fill for Portland. And even if we say that Rondo gets the same minutes he had last game, plays 28, which I don't think is going to happen, there's a chance for McLemore to play well over that. And so I think there's more upside and floor for McLemore's playing time.
I can't roster Rondo. I'd want to die. All right. I'm getting my Nurkic first. I'm getting a lot of Nas Little still. Joel Embiid is my third most exposed player. Josh Primo, Simons, Burks, KPJ. I like RJ Barrett a lot. He gets a big time usage bump in a situation with no Rose, no Kemba on the floor. So I'm anxious to go that direction. I'm pretty light on Whiteside. I'm actually pretty light on Furkan Korkmaz right now, which is not something that I was expecting. I'm also light on Tobias Harris, which does not make me feel good.
You are a better man than me for being light on Furkan Korkmaz. He's one of my more roster players today.
Doesn't feel good. I'm going to be perfectly honest with you there, but if we have him in the 40s, I actually am a little bit lighter than that.
33 minutes, 40 minutes, and 36 minutes for Korkmaz in the last 3 games. And now we're taking Seth Curry out of the picture. It's a lot of playing time for a guy who I hate and who kind of looks like Chris D'Elia.
Is that a good thing or a bad thing, given
it's just Chris D'Elia's
most recent history?
That if he gets mistaken for Chris D'Elia in somebody's DMs, then yes, it's problematic. But in general, it's just kind of a thing I think they look alike.
That's fair. I don't really have any concept of what Furkan Korkmaz looks like, so I don't know. By the way, thank you guys. We're over 1,000 likes. That's always fun to see. Any surprises in your crunches with the final 5 minutes coming in here?
I'm about even with the field on Hassan Whiteside, which I think is a pretty important talking point that could be something we hit on towards the end here. So Whiteside, the results from the last couple of Slate, I can't believe what happened with Whiteside the last couple of games. And I think Whiteside's, you know who Whiteside is? Whiteside is the center. Whiteside is to centers what Rajon Rondo is to point guards.
Yeah.
And when they're on the court, even though I don't think either of them are good real life players, they produce fantasy points. But Whiteside, for whatever reason, has just been miserable in his last couple of starts in a way that doesn't make sense. I don't expect him to be a high usage guy ever, but he should accumulate at least rebounds and blocks. And if he takes shots, he should make them because he's never shooting more than like 3 inches away from the basket. He's been just a total ghost the last couple of games. I can't imagine it's going to continue. I ultimately just ended up around even with the field on Whiteside. I know you said you were undercutting him a little bit. Where did you end up with him?
I'm half the field right now. So today's the day that he's going to like play well and everything is going to go well for him. And that sucks. But yeah, I don't know. I'm feeling pretty good about this slate right now. I'm happy with where most of my exposures are. Like, obviously you can't make it all work, but for right now, I'm pretty happy with what I'm getting. Outside of, I'm nervous about Nas Little, but I've liked him all day. I like him more than our current ownership, and it's creating a situation where I'm getting a lot of him. I'm mostly just going to have 2 of the 3 of Nurkic, Nas Little, and Anthony Simons in most of my lineups, and I just got to hope that they stay in this game against Brooklyn, because if they do, I assume the 2 of those 3 guys are actually the part of it.
It helps that they're at home. It helps that Harden isn't playing. Let's see. What is the spread for this game now? The spread is,
I'm guessing
it's not like some astronomical spread. They're not even the biggest favorite of the day.
Am I right? Is it like 7?
We've got the Utah Jazz favored by 11. The Blazers are currently 8.5 point underdogs to the Nets. For reference, the 76ers are 9.5 point favorites over the Rockets. The Celtics are 9 point favorites over the Pacers. We've got the Pistons and Jazz. Jazz are favored by 11 points. Like, this is just a middle, a slate in the middle in terms of spread. So if anybody's rostering players from this game or doesn't want to roster players from this game because of blowout concerns, then you kind of have to take a look at the rest of the slate, because there's 3 other games with a higher chance of a blowout.
Final exposures: Nurkic, Embiid, Little, Primo, Simons, KPJ, Alec Burks, RJ Barrett, Keita Bates Diop, Lonnie Walker. This is where I'm at right now, and none of that feels fun.
We got a super chat here from Gabriel Meffrin. He asked Thibault or Danny Green on FanDuel. Thibault for me.
Yep, Thibault.
Sorry, go ahead.
I don't have anything else. We're at 658 right now. I've got my lineups in. R. Stanley's mad that I don't pick random questions out of the 3,100 people that are just tossing questions in. I mean, it's not all that easy. It's straight down like a shotgun.
There you go. You read his message. Message seen, message read, question heard.
Raymond Diaz says, Josh, I hope you have some Rocco. Do you have any Robert Covington today? I don't.
Less than 10%.
Yeah. How many lineups do I have? Simons, Little, and Nurk in the same lineup?
Nurkic is my most rostered player today, by the way.
Okay, we're on the same page then. I have... Okay, I don't mind that at all. I think this is a very nice spread. I have 11% of my lineups with none of all 3 of those guys. 45% have 1, 34% have 2, 9% of my lineups have all 3. I'm happy with that. That's a decent spread. You don't go too crazy. You just mix and match those guys a lot, and every once in a while, you hope for overtime. And at that point, I'm probably screwed because I don't have nearly enough Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving. And by nearly enough, I mean I have 8 and 7% of those 2 respectively. Go Cam Thomas.
Let's see. Which game?
By the way, we locked.
Oh, we locked? All right, cool. Let's go. Which team other than the Blazers do you have the most exposure to? Oh, we have to leave? All right, Jordan's taking us out.
Houston Rockets. I'm not going long on another show. So guys, thank you for joining me here. Hit that like button one last time. Subscribe to the channel, notification bell, all that stuff. College football live before lock is up next. Not on this stream, but on a different one. Go find it. Good luck.